Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud. Today we're going to be talking about the astrology of January 2026. Oh my gosh, 2026 already. We're going to be breaking down all of the ins and outs of the astrological movements of the month ahead, of which there are many. So buckle in, join us. We're going to be spending a few hours together just going through the big picture thoughts, the philosophical thoughts about the overall astrology of the moment. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of the details. You might hear some things on this channel that you don't normally hear, since we utilize some of the techniques of Hellenistic astrology, of traditional ancient astrology. So hope that you're doing well out there and having a great Friday afternoon as I'm recording this. And let's take a little bit of a look ahead. So welcome, friends. Let me know if you're here in the chat. I always love seeing my friends in the chat and knowing where you're stopping in from. So let me know you're here. So we're talking the astrology of January 2026. A couple announcements before we dive into it. There is a couple weeks left of 2025. So if you want to reach out for a reading and take a look ahead at 2026, we might be shifting some of the offerings for 2026 coming up. But if you take a look at the website at the Book Now button, you're like, you know what, I'd really like to get a natal reading or a transit reading or some astrological tutoring from Spencer. That's where you can find me, spencermichaud.com. Click on the Book Now button. I'd love to work with you and help you to make a plan for what's going on ahead in the new year, right? It's a great time for making plans, a great time for kind of looking back at where we've been and looking forward to where we're going. Sometimes having an objective guide that has some insight into your personality, your chart, what the things that are going to be coming into your life via the language of astrology can be extremely helpful. So go find me at spencermichaud.com. I would love to work with you. Also, I have a webinar store over there where you can find some teaching material. I've got all sorts of webinars where you can learn astrology, tarot, and mythology. Click on the store button. You can find my Decans webinars over there where I talk about the 36 faces of the zodiac, these 10-degree sections that we're going to talk about today that are syncretized with the tarot and with fixed stars and with daimons and spirits. So all sorts of good educational material there. I have a webinar series with my beautiful partner, Tanya Andrews of Third Coast Mojo. It's called Dignity and Devotion. And if you are trying to craft a magical practice that is informed by astrology, which can be a really powerful combination, one of the most powerful combinations, go check out that 7 Traditional Planets series where you can create a devotional practice, but also learn how to harness the energy of those very powerful deities. Finally, you can find Stars and Cards, a webinar where I teach you how to connect all of the significations with the tarot, to understand some of the esoteric language behind the tarot, which is quite vast. So if you want to learn all of those things, go visit the store over at spencermichaud.com. Speaking of Tanya Andrews, we have some pretty cool stuff that is being launched over at Third Coast Mojo. Exalted Jupiter in Cancer is here. Pretty excited about this election. This is the greater benefic, a planet that's associated with abundance, with good fortune, with expansion, with bringing order to our lives, bringing peace. And when it's in Cancer, it's in one of the places that it loves to be in. So it is able to do all of those things with all of the grace that comes through Zeus, through Jupiter. And Tanya's been able to capture some of that essence in some of these materials that you see here, and has a series of offerings that are going to be coming out over the next few weeks. But this Exalted Jupiter, the first in her offering in that series, is amazing. I've been wearing it. It's been making me feel hopeful in a time where sometimes hope is a little bit harder to find than normal. And it's just been really making me feel generous, I guess, like the greater benefic. So if you're wanting to come into alignment with generosity, reciprocity, abundance in your life, finding some new ways to share with others and to be able to have that circulation of goodwill, this is an amazing election and material. So go find her on Etsy at Third Coast Mojo. There is a link to that is pinned in the chat on YouTube. So I hope that you'll go support her over there and partake of this wonderful election. You can also find me over at my newsletter, okay, the Spencer Michaud Astrology newsletter, where I also give updates on Third Coast Mojo offerings as well. I've been picking songs of the week over there if you want to know, get a little insight into some, some little tunes that I like. go sign up for that. There is a link to sign up for the newsletter. It'll help you stay in touch when we're going live as well. So when we go live, usually we go live around Friday afternoons, but sometimes those times shift a little bit, and being part of the newsletter community can help you stay in touch with any deals that we're offering, but also when we're going live. This week's song of the week was a Steve Winwood tune. I believe it was the Finer Things to celebrate the Jupiter Exalted in Cancer election release. Steve Winwood's kind of my emotional support music as I guess an exennial, you could call it, that little Oregon Trail generation. I was just coming into consciousness in this world while Stevie Winwood was on the radio, and just love his voice, and like there's just a real positive aura around those early 80s Steve Winwood tunes. So go check that out as well. If you want to support the work that I'm doing here today, you can also support the channel via Super Chat while I'm live on YouTube, or you can become a patron at buymeacoffee.com. All of these donations and gifts go a long way to helping us keep the lights on here, helping us to do this work, buy us the time and the materials to be able to do the research and put all of this together. It is a labor of love, and all of your support is very, very much appreciated. I've been reading this wonderful new book that I always have good book recommendations, Sacred Economics, Money, Gift, and Society in the Age of Transition by Charles Eisenstein, talking about the circulation of energy and how we can create reciprocal relationships. And this is a great way to support that process, and hopefully we can create those energy exchanges with one another. All right, friends. Those are our announcements. I'm going to check in with our chat and welcome some friends here. Rachel Fletcher is here. What's up? Rachel says hello from Roanoke, Virginia. Nice to see you, Rachel. You getting some snow over there? We just got some snow out the window for this afternoon a little bit. It was kind of, all the snow melted, and then it rained yesterday and it was all gone. And then today it's cold again, and now we got some more snow, and it's just looking out the window. It's like, oh, come on, really? You gotta do this again. I gotta get the snowblower out again. But that's, that's winter. So nice to see you, Rachel. Hope everything's going well your way. Leanne is here. What's up? Says, hey, Spencer. Hey, Chad. Hope everything is going. Everyone is well. Hope you are well too, Leanne. Thanks for joining us from overseas in the UK. It's always nice to see my friends from Europe and other continents joining us. I'm so honored to be, I guess, a global voice at this point, and having your perspectives in the chat is really just a blessing. So thank you, Leanne, for being here today. Javiera is here. What's up? Javiera says, hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a lovely day. Javiera is, of course, another international friend joining us from Canada via Nicaragua, I believe. So a globetrotter, if you will. So welcome, Javiera. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Rachel says, love the song of the week. Oh, good. I'm glad people are enjoying that. I know sometimes it's a little bit, what's the word? Vulnerable to share things that we like, because we all have different tastes, and my musical taste is very, I would say, kind of eclectic. I like a lot of 80s synth pop, and but I like things from all different genres and different decades. So if I'm sharing things that are like, what is that? That's so ancient, Spencer. No. This is maybe a Cancerian thing where we like things that stand the test of time, and appreciate if other people listen. It's just kind of this nice little sharing thing. Oh, let's get a little insight into some more personality there. K-Wow is here. What's up, K-Wow? Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Thank you for stopping in again this week. It's always nice to see you in the chat, and hope that you're doing well from wherever you're joining us. I can't remember off the top of my head, but let me know in the chat, and I'll give your place of origin a shout out. Okay. Friends, let's get down to it. We're going to buckle in, get yourself some water, some snacks, something comfy. And we're going to be here a little while. We're probably going to be here about 2.5 to 3 hours if I'm being realistic, and going through just a lot of astrology. And I will start with some big picture thoughts. Okay, big picture thoughts. This new year, this new month that we're going to be experiencing, January, we have a lot of the Capricorn and Aquarius kind of planetary movement happening. We've got a lot of planets moving through Capricorn and then transitioning into Aquarius. So Saturn ruled signs. So it is a Saturnine time of year. It's a time where it's winter in the northern hemisphere. It's a time where abundance isn't necessarily as easy to find on the earth in the natural, traditional way, right? There are other ways to create abundance during the winter time through community, through sharing, through knowledge, all of those types of things. But things aren't necessarily growing as easily in the conditions that winter brings. So that's a underlying theme, right? But one of the things that is coming in January is a lot of renewal. So not only do we have the return of the light of the winter solstice that's happening this weekend in December, okay, I believe the 21st, Sunday, as I'm recording this on the 19th. So it's coming. The return of the light's coming. We have a new moon coming today, and then the return of the light as the sun moves into Capricorn. Now that concept is really fascinating because it is shown to us through the ascension of the sun by a concept called declination. That's how high the sun rises each day around noon or so, right? It's declination. And at this point, the sun's going to start rising higher in the sky and therefore increasing the length of the daylight. Doesn't mean that we have longer days than nights yet, but we're starting to see the ascension of the daylight. It's like, oh, okay, return of the light. Days are starting to get longer again. And it's an important time to set intentions. It's an important time to set goals. It's an important time to take stock of where you've been and where you want to go. So a lot of those themes happening throughout the beginning of the new year. Now, if we just think about the specific astrology, a couple things. This is sort of the everything month. There are four planets that are traveling together. We have Venus, the Sun, and Mars, and Mercury all traveling within a few degrees of each other over the course of the next month or so. So everything is going to be doing kind of a similar thing. And I say everything. It's not literally everything, but it feels like it. So to start off the month, everything's out of bounds. If you joined me for the Astrology of December, we talked a lot about planets being out of bounds. So we have Mars, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon all starting the month in a condition where those planets are going outside the normal path of the normal declination path of the sun. So we just talked about declination as how high the sun is rising each day at like noon in the south in my northern hemisphere viewpoint of the world. And these planets, sometimes most of the time they usually stay within the same path of the sun. Metaphorically, that can be a planet kind of doing what's expected of it, what society expects of it. When a planet's out of bounds, it's moving outside the realm of the king, the realm of the solar deity. It's doing things that are unexpected. It's doing things that are outside the box. It's more of a pure essence of its own intentions rather than the expectations that are set for it. So Mars, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon all start the month out of bounds. So we might be just kind of doing things a lot different than we might normally have done it in the past. And that's okay. We might really have to. Everything's Kazemi. So all of these planets are going to renew themselves in the heart of the sun. We have Venus, Mars, and Mercury all renewing themselves in the heart of the sun. And Kazemi is a concept where we see a planet conjoining the sun. Think of the sun as a great furnace of life, a furnace of vitality. And when these planets join with the sun, they get this new burst of energy, this new renewal of purpose. So if we're feeling a little tired lately through December, we've come to a lot of endings. We've been going through this snake shedding skin year. It's the Chinese year of the snake. We've been going through these squares from Sagittarius to Pisces where we're trying to figure out, what does this all mean? How do we let go of all these old forms that we were experiencing through the grand water trines, where all those planets were moving through Scorpio and showing us, hey, this isn't working anymore. This form has to be released. And now all of those forms have been released through December, or many of them. And now we're seeing the time where we can plant new seeds again in January with these Kazemis. So a lot of Kazemi planets, a lot of renewal energy. And a lot of this is going to be happening in the second decan of Capricorn, right? This kind of Three of Pentacles area where we're trying to build something. We're trying to build some structures, but we need cooperation to do so. So we'll talk about that as well. Everything's also opposite Jupiter retrograde. So all of these planets, the Venus, the Sun, Mars, Mercury, are all going to oppose Jupiter retrograde in Cancer from Capricorn. So a lot of tension between our Capricorn themes and our Cancerian themes. A lot of the Jupiterian themes we've been talking about is how do we create a more fair and just and equitable way of supporting ourselves and others that doesn't necessarily diminish others. This is part of why I'm doing the research like this, Sacred Economics. This book was recommended to me by Robin Wall Kimmerer in Braiding Sweetgrass. And also, what was the other book? The Service Berry. Robin Wall Kimmerer, excellent, excellent author, a biology professor, but also an indigenous wisdom practitioner, and somebody who really thinks about reciprocity, how to create and come into alignment, really more appropriately, with the abundance that is around us all of the time. And one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is nature is extremely abundant. It's always creating, it's always providing, it's always gifting its energy to us and to other creatures that we inhabit this planet with. And one of the points in the very beginning of this book, I'm not finished with Charles Eisenstein's book yet, but one of the beginning issues with this is it's not an issue of abundance. It's an issue of distribution. So how do we facilitate distribution? How do we facilitate circulation of energy where the energy doesn't stop in one particular place and get hoarded or get blocked or things of that nature? So if we come into alignment with the idea that that abundance is out there, and how do we start facilitating more meaningful exchanges, I think we can navigate this Jupiter opposition with all of these planets. But we are going to have to decide how we want to build and how we're going to do that in a way that is in alignment with our integrity. After all these planets oppose Jupiter, they're going to move into Aquarius and they're going to conjoin Pluto. So we have these like Pluto conjunctions. So a lot of these things are going to be social issues that come up. Big picture thoughts. There's a lot of talk in the news about health insurance and how do we get people the health care that they need. A lot of times in America, at least, we have a lot of really important legislative things that happen in January. We have transitions between different presidential, administrations during this time. There's a lot of new laws that go into place for the new year, etc. So a lot of those kind of larger picture things are going to be happening. Now, these conjunctions are going to be happening pretty close to a fixed star called Altair at about 2 degrees of Aquarius, 2 to 3 degrees. And that is a fixed star associated with the thunderbolts of Zeus, the weapons of war for Zeus, unfortunately. So I think there could be some military things that we're working through with Altair placements, especially with Pluto in the mix and some of the corruption that becomes exposed with that. Pluto is a planet that exposes corruption. And we might be seeing some of that happening with all of these planets conjoining Pluto around that fixed star Altair. So something to keep an eye on as we move forward. We also have, speaking of potential warlike planets, Saturn and Neptune are going to be moving into Aries around this time as well. I think that Neptune goes first in January. Saturn will move into Aries in February. So something to keep our eyes on. Now, the other thing with January that is really sticking out to me is there is a long, and I had 4 O's to make it that long. 1 O for every day the moon is void of course. So void of course moons there's different ways of interpreting a void of course moon. The modern way is that the moon is not going to make an aspect to any planet for, I believe, 30 degrees, but it doesn't necessarily cross sign boundaries. The Hellenistic or traditional way of measuring a void of course moon is a planet doesn't make an aspect to a traditional planet for 30 degrees, but it does cross sign boundaries. And that is much more rare. Okay, it's much more rare to have that condition. And in this case, we have a void of course moon that lasts for 86 hours and 38 minutes. So 4 days of a void of course moon. And of the more rare type of it. And generally void of course moons talk about feeling a little bit aimless, wandering. It is sort of like being in a land where you're just kind of wandering around aimlessly, and they would say that nothing would come of the matter. So we have a period of time between the 18th and the 22nd of January where we might feel a little bit unmoored because of this void of course moon. It happens right after the new moon in Capricorn 3. So I want you to keep an eye out for that too. And I will give you all the details of that so you can prepare for it. I guess just one other thing. There is a pattern that a lot of these planets are going through, since most of these planets, Mars, the Sun, Mercury, and Venus, are all in a similar place. Many of the planets are going to sextile Saturn and Neptune, and then trine Uranus, okay, and then ingress immediately into Aquarius. And then finally, they will conjoin Pluto. So it's a pattern that we're going to see. So they're going to sextile Saturn and Neptune, trine Uranus, ingress into Aquarius, and then conjoin Pluto. So all four of these planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and the Sun, are going to do that pattern over the course of January. Okay, so those are sort of our big picture thoughts. I'm going to check back in with the chat here. Marietta is here. What's up, Marietta, aka Trauma Raised Me? Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Nice to see you joining us again in the chat. Says great, the great giant going retro and dragging all of us with him. Yes, exactly. So yeah, we have Jupiter moving retrograde right now, but in a sign of its exaltation, which we've kind of been exploring the potential of an exalted planet acting sort of like it's in its fall when it's retrograde. So we may still be having some challenges with Jupiter. The other thing about Jupiter right now too is starting out the month, Jupiter is still in malefic enclosure until January 7th. So I will show you that as well. That's from the 15th of December to the 7th of January. It's maybe a little bit harder to expand, to feel like we're making progress in that regard. Another great thing you could do to mitigate it, go get some of that Jupiter and Cancer oil from Third Coast Mojo. Javier says that's how all of the decan of December has felt. Void moon vibes. I'm in a Neptune haze. Yeah, the Neptune contacts and void of moon, they can feel a little bit similar in their vibes. Like we're kind of melting, like there's just a little bit of confusion, and we just feel like we're not going anywhere, right? So we'll try to navigate that the best we can. Javier says, I live this Capricorn Cancer axis daily. Well, your chart's going to get lit up, Javier, in January. And so will mine, because I'm a Cancer Sun and Mercury friend. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these medium range things. We talked about some of the big picture thoughts. Let's talk about the medium range things. Lunations. So we have a number of moon phases that are important moving through January. We have a full moon on the 3rd of January at 13 degrees of Cancer. So the opposition between the Sun in Capricorn and the moon in Cancer, its place of its own domicile, place where it has access to its resources. So there could be some positive experiences with that. Those two decans with that full moon, the hard work of Capricorn 2 necessary to build something great or ambitious, and then sort of the ability to enjoy our abundance that we've created in the peak of summer in Cancer 2, the ability to grow within a protected space. So if we have ambitious projects that we're doing, we might have to think about, how do we protect these at this full moon? How do we do this in a way that doesn't expose it to early criticism that might derail the project? These are things that we work through when we're trying to build something, but also grow in healthy ways. On the 10th of January, we have a last quarter moon at 20 degrees of Libra. So this is the Sun in Capricorn 3, the third 10-degree section of Capricorn, squaring the moon in the third 10-degree section of Libra. That third decan of Libra, a Four of Swords syncretized decan with the tarot. And we were kind of looking at how to maintain a healthy center when things are sort of swirling around us. Think of that as the eye of the hurricane decan. How do you keep your composure when you are trying to work through all of the challenges, especially the challenges of taking on extra responsibility that the Sun may be pushing us towards in Capricorn 3, of taking on the mantle of the throne, I guess you could call that. That's the name of that decan in 36 faces. When we're trying to take on that responsibility, how do we stay centered? How do we stay balanced? How do we make all of the adjustments needed so that we don't burn ourselves out? On the 18th of January, we have a new moon at 28 degrees of Capricorn, that throne decan that I was talking about. And I'll break down all of these as we go along. But that new moon is interesting to me because that new moon sort of kicks off the long void of course period. So we may be planting seeds for taking on new roles of responsibility to be able to increase our material wealth and things of that nature. But we may not be able to unfold it right away after that new moon. We may have to kind of let some things take care of themselves, unfold, and by the 22nd, we might be able to take more action. One of the things that I'm thinking about with this is we may be wanting to expand what we do materially, but the rules of the game are changing. Just think about, like, in the United States right now, the rules of getting health insurance are completely in flux right now. We don't have a vote on extending ACA subsidies and things of that nature. Health insurance could be the same price, or it could be 3 times more expensive. And all of those things are in flux right now. So we have to be flexible with that. We have to work on what we can work on as individuals while still advocating for the changes that we want to see on a collective level. But there might be some patience required with that because we don't necessarily have all the information yet. And those big macrocosmic changes are going to be happening in real time throughout January. And we've got some conflicts that are starting to bubble up too that could complicate things as well. So I think all of those things are going to require us to have patience, require us to be flexible, and to work on what we can control, and then release some of the anxiety about things that might be out of our control. Ingresses. So actually, one more lunation. We have a first quarter moon on the 25th of January. Once we are into Aquarius season, we're going to have an exalted moon at 6 degrees of Taurus squaring the exiled sun in Aquarius. So this first quarter moon, those are interesting placements because we may be feeling a little bit pushed to the fringe with the Aquarius 1 sun, but the exalted moon brings us resources. But the kind of caveat with that is the first decan of Taurus sometimes brings worry. It's the Lord of worry about having enough, about scarcity. And we can talk about how to feel abundant even if we are not necessarily having material possessions. I've been talking a lot about this with friends, family, etc. How do we create abundance in this world in a way that is almost divested or detached from just even monetary systems in general? Yes, we need money. Yes, money is not necessarily an evil thing, but we do need to understand how to create abundance, how to create success and reciprocity and circulation, not just tied to that fiat currency. And those questions might be coming up during that first quarter moon quite significantly. Okay, let's talk ingresses. So ingresses, that's a fancy word for a planet moving into a new sign. So on January 1st, Mercury moves into Capricorn, moving out of its exile, out of a place where it's uncomfortable in Sagittarius, and into a place where it's a little bit more practical. So in the beginning of the month, our thought processes, our communication styles might be a little bit more like, that's a wonderful vision, but what's the reality of it, right? Reality check Mercury with it moving through Capricorn. On the 17th of January, Venus moves into Aquarius. On the 19th, the sun follows into Aquarius. And on the 20th, Mercury will move. Mercury's flying. It's moving really fast, direct. It will move into Aquarius on the 20th. So only 20 days of Mercury in Capricorn. Mars will move into Aquarius on the 23rd, which is interesting because we will have most of the month of January with Mars in its exaltation in Capricorn. So that is a powerful time to take some meaningful, practical, well thought out actions in your life, but having patience to see it through to completion. And then finally, probably the biggest ingress of the month is on the 26th of January with Neptune moving into Aries. So this is a big shift because Neptune is a slow-moving planet that changes signs once every decade and a half or so. And this is going to be a big shift in our energy. We had a preview of this in early 2025, but then Neptune retrograded back into Pisces. This is going to show us where our collective illusions are, where we may be seeking connection and unity with the divine, but also where we may be seeking redemption, according to Liz Green. It's a different vibe than Pisces, right? We may be trying to take a lot of new risks. We might be idealizing individual effort over collective efforts. We might be glamorizing Aries type things, which quite frankly could be violence. We could be glamorizing this kind of masculine yang energy as well. So things to consider. And Saturn moving through that period in February as well. Saturn-Neptune conjunctions talk about the building of structures and the dissolving of them. And a lot of those can be really like these emotional structures that we're building as well, based on the vision that we're trying to bring into reality. So we'll talk about that more moving into February. If you want to get a big preview of that, though, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries, go check out a video that I did with Melissa LaFara of Energetic Principles. We did a collaboration on YouTube, and you can find that in the collaboration tab on my channel. All right, let's talk solar phases. Solar phases, we have some really important ones this month. Solar phases talk about renewals of planets in the heart of the sun, the furnace of the sun, the infusing of new purpose to that planetary cycle. Also, when planets will emerge from the beams, those are often called moments of phasis, where we are seeing a concentration of that energy and messages that we need to pay specific attention to. So on January 6th, Venus is cazimi at 16 degrees of Capricorn. There's a period of time between the 6th and the 9th where both Venus and Mars are going to be renewed. So that's a powerful first week of the month here. On the 9th, Mars is renewed in the heart of the sun, cazimi at 19 degrees of Capricorn. We see also the day before that, Pluto is moving under the beams of the sun. I have a little bit of questions still about whether these outer planets work in the same way with cazimi and being able to have those same moments of phasis and visibility, because a lot of that concept is based on the planet being visible or not. And these outer planets are kind of quote unquote invisible planets. So I'm not sure that that same concept applies, but it's worth an exploration. We could test it, right? So on the 8th, Pluto will go under the beams of the sun at 2 degrees of Aquarius, right? Where we're talking about that pretty activated degree on the fixed star Altair. So again, that fixed star is associated with the eagle that carries Zeus's thunderbolts. So we see a lot of military associations with that fixed star. So we could see a lot of discussions about military action as planets conjoin and as Pluto goes under the beams around that period of time. All of those things are going to be starting to come to the forefront of our discussions. On the 21st of January, Mercury is cazimi at 1 degree of Aquarius. So a renewal for mercurial significations as well. And then finally, on the 23rd, the sun will conjoin Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius, starting a whole new Pluto cycle as well, solar Pluto cycle. So all those planets cazimi, right? All those planets being renewed in the heart of the sun. Really powerful new beginnings for this month. All right. Javier says, I'm interesting. I'm always building and dissolving for newness. Saturn and Neptune. It's a really, you live this, right? Was having Saturn and Neptune conjoining in your natal chart. So that is going to be something we're doing as a collective in January, is trying to build structure, seeing structures dissolve. Sometimes when we want to build new structures, other structures have to go out to sea, right? Be washed away with the tide. If a new tide's coming in, it's washing away some of the old things. So really powerful for change. Okay, out of bounds planets, enclosures, and void of course moons. These are traditional techniques that we don't always hear talked about as much with pop astrology, but really powerful ways of measuring time. So the first thing that we have is we still have Jupiter retrograde in malefic enclosure, which means that Saturn and Mars are making aspects to Jupiter that make it feel like it can't necessarily do all of the things that it is trying to do. It feels stuck. We might have some stuck Jupiter energy. We might feel pressure from different areas of our life. So go back to December 15th. Look at what may have started feeling enclosed around that period of time. It could be related to the Sagittarius and Pisces area of your chart. But the good news is that condition is going to start to be alleviated when Venus conjoins Mars in Capricorn on January the 7th. So it's not going to last forever. Sometimes Jupiter is associated with hope as well, and it might be tough to be hopeful in this period of time, but I think some of our hope is going to begin to return as Jupiter is released from that pressure from the two malefic planets, Saturn and Mars. We have those out of bounds planets I was talking about. Here are some dates for you to consider. Mars out of bounds from November 27th to January the 4th. Venus out of bounds from December 20th to January 3rd. Mercury out of bounds from December 28th to January 15th. And then we have a number of moon out of bounds periods, which aren't as rare as these other planets. So the 30th of December to January 4th, moon out of bounds. January 13th through the 18th, moon out of bounds as well. And then January 27th through the 31st, the moon will also be out of bounds. So 3 of those lunar out of bounds periods. The other really interesting thing, and some dates to write down on your calendar, the 18th through the 22nd, moon is going to be void of course. So this will start on January the 18th, right after the new moon in Capricorn, when the moon conjoins Venus at 1 degree of Aquarius. That 1 to 3 degree area of Aquarius is going to be really active this month. And it will end 4 days later. It makes no aspects to traditional planets, okay? The non-outer planets, the non-Uranus, Neptune, Pluto planets, until the 22nd, when it makes a trine to retrograde Jupiter at 18 degrees Pisces. So the moon will be void from 1 degree Aquarius, 30 degrees of Aquarius, like throughout the entirety of its time in Aquarius, and then throughout the first half of Pisces. So that's like almost 48 degrees of voidness. Like that's a long void of course moon. And like I said, void of course moons, if you measure them in the modern way, they tend to happen fairly regularly. But these Hellenistic voids are much more rare. Sometimes you will get a couple in a month, but sometimes you'll get none for a couple months. So it's worth paying attention to. What I try to do during void of course moons, Hellenistic voids, I don't plan anything that I am super attached to the outcome. One of the activities that I love doing during void of course moons is cleaning. I love organizing like a dirty, like cluttered up space. Like cleaning your attic out or getting rid of a bunch of stuff. Those are the types of activities that I think Hellenistic void of course moons can be really supportive of. But if you're trying to plan something that you really are attached to the outcome, you may want to avoid this period of time. Now, that being said, it's 4 days. It's hard to stop our lives for 4 days, so I wouldn't get like too bent out of shape about that. But it, like if you have to schedule, I don't know, like if you have like a surgery or something, you might want to avoid that window if it's possible. If you have to have an emergency thing, like you got to go do it. But other things like that, like where you have the choice to move it to a different space, you might want to consider doing so. All right. So those are our medium range views. So let's start talking a little bit about the first part of this, the Sun in Capricorn 2. Now, this is a time period. What we're going to do today is we're going to split these time periods into decans. So 9 or 10 day periods. And I also kind of just want to remind you that we have this pattern with planets where they're going to sextile Saturn and Neptune, then trine Uranus. So this is happening from Capricorn, these planets moving through Capricorn. They're going to trine Uranus and Taurus, and then ingress into Aquarius and conjoin Pluto. So we'll see that. I'm consolidating that because there's so many different aspects. Like I can't just, I ran out of banners like when I was preparing this. So some of those things are going to be consolidated. So let's start by just giving you a little bit of a primer on what Capricorn 2 is all about. So here's a decan flashcard that you can receive, a digital decan flashcard you can receive when you download or purchase the Decans of Capricorn webinar. It's a 3 to 4 hour webinar that I talk all about Capricorn, the 10-degree sections. So this is a Mars-ruled face. The decans are also called faces. These are masks that the sign has. So this is one where if we conflate, which we don't always want to conflate things, but if we think about Mars in Capricorn, it's exalted. So this is a really powerful place for Mars, where it has dignity by face and by exaltation. But when the sun's moving through there, it's shining a spotlight on what we want to build. We looked at the first decan of Capricorn, where you could see here the Two of Pentacles, where we're thinking about changes we want to make, and we're trying to decide where we want to build our next material process, what our goals are. Powerful time for setting intentions when the sun is moving through Capricorn 1. That's happening starting this Sunday, the 21st. So it's a good time to set intentions at the Yule, right? But when we get into Capricorn 2, we've decided what we want to do. We've weighed the pros and cons. We've weighed the advantages and disadvantages of a physical place. We've thought about the materials that we have or the materials that we need. And now in Capricorn 2, we're toiling. This is what Mars does. It takes action on those thoughts that we had. You can see in the Three of Pentacles, we have a communication between the artist crafting a very ornate cathedral. We have the clergy, and we have the government official. So when we are doing things that are ambitious, like the Lord of Material Works is the name of this card in the Golden Dawn's Book T, we sometimes can't do this alone. And Capricorn 2 teaches us how to gain the cooperation needed to do something very ambitious, to build the ornate structures of our life. Austin Coppock calls it the pyramid. Think about how much cooperation was needed to build those very, very ambitious projects in ancient Egypt. And the spirit in this decan is Hygeia. So Hygeia teaches us how to take care of our body when we're trying to do some of these difficult physical labors. So how do we take care of ourselves as we are trying to move through this physical world? So themes to think about: architectural designs, blueprints, ambitious projects, daunting tasks, gathering resources and support to manifest something, limiting possibilities, castrating possibilities into form. This is a Saturnine kind of signification. Saturn, Kronos, has this sickle, right? And it was used to castrate, I believe it was used to castrate his father, Uranus, right? But this is one of the Saturnine significations. How do we castrate all of the wave of possibilities, eliminate some, so that one can become real? And I think that's what we're trying to do here in this decan too. How do we make this wave of possibilities? How do we bring it into form? Proper maintenance of bodily and mental health, important for when we're doing these things. This decan has associations with assembly line, means of production. How do we get things done? How are we going to be most efficient in our work? So questions you can ask yourself during this time period: what resources do you need to build? How can you gather support for your vision? Is this plan in service of the self or the collective? Okay, that's important. If we are only serving the self, we become an endpoint for the circulation of resources. If we become a channel for those resources, we become a conduit and we keep the flow going, okay? And this is a really important concept as we're trying to make our economics more sacred, right? Make these exchanges more spiritual, more sacred, more honorable, right? Rather than just blaming greed for everything. How do we create this vision of a new system of exchange that doesn't always leave us feeling drained or feeling icky, right? Like that's kind of, it's like, oh, this feels icky. It feels like exploitive. So it doesn't have to be that way, is the point. So another question you can ask yourself: is the project practical or is it hubristic? Hubristic was one of the things that the gods in ancient Greek mythology punished the most. It basically was when a human being said, I know better than the divine, than gods themselves, or than nature, right? And that is often punished very severely. So if we're trying to do things that go against nature, if we're trying to do things that are so grandiose that they're just not realistic, we will experience a fall from grace. This was seen through the biblical story of the Tower of Babel. They were trying to hubristically build a tower to heaven through material means. Now, I think that and what I agree with, I guess I will say, Charles Eisenstein, when he talks about one of the real challenges with our modern mindset is the separation of spirit and material things. And it wasn't always that way. The world was ensouled. So that Tower of Babel story, while I think it can be important to try to not deify these types of materiality exchanges or these projects, I also think that there's a different way of thinking of things, that matter can be ensouled, and we don't have to feel guilty for doing physical things. And I think this is a mindset that would be very valuable for restoring some of the abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset. So finally, how can you take care of your body while you toil? Really important when we're going through Capricorn season. So let me check in with the chat here. Javier is saying, I also heard void of course moons are like Mercury retrograde, just revise things. Good idea, right? Always good to reflect on things. No new projects, Javier says, exactly. You want to just be working on something that you've already initiated. You don't want to necessarily start something new, which is a little bit awkward because it's going to be happening right after a Capricorn new moon. We might be wanting to start something new. Again, that's where the patience comes in, right? Rachel says, though I don't have anything in Capricorn too, I love this decan. Ooh. Yeah, I'm learning to appreciate it. It's the opposite decan of my natal sun, Rachel. So it's a little bit awkward for me sometimes, but I think that sometimes we need balancing energy in our life. If I plug my beautiful partner, Tanya Andrews, Third Coast Mojo again, she has some awesome Mars and Capricorn elected materia in this decan. And it is powerhouse stuff. We have one oil that has chips of a beaver. Let's see here. I have some on my desk to remind me to keep working hard. These are beaver chips, and beaver chips can mean different things. Not beaver poop, but like chips that they have cut from the tree. And we found these at a nature center that we like to walk at, and the beaver had returned to that area for the first time in 150 years. The beavers had sort of been hunted out of extinction in our area for the last 150 years. And through the restorations efforts of places like the Mathi Botanical Gardens in southeastern Michigan, in the town that I live in, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti area, the beavers had returned. And it was just so powerful. And that energy of like just kind of building ornate structures really is infused with all that. So check that out. If you want to embody this decan, check out the Mars in the second decan of Capricorn materia over there. But yeah, good energy. Winter's here. What's up, Winter? Yim, nice to see you. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Thank you for letting me know that you're here. I hope everything's going well with you, Winter. It's been a long time since we've talked, and you'll have to give me the life update pretty soon, my friend. But nice to see you here in the chat. Javier says, I'm feeling all of this so hard at the moment. Yeah, it's a lot going on. A lot of stuff we have to work through. A lot of things we've had to let go of, and a lot of things that we're going to need to bring into a new beginning. Winter says, all my Capricorn placements, Neptune, Uranus, North Node, Descendant, are all in this decan. Oh, man. So this is a good one for you, Winter. This is one where, working, hard work combined with delegating, right? With getting the help that you need, not burning yourself out. I know you're a hard worker, Winter. And that's one of the things we have to be careful of when we have this decan, is we have to be able to take care of our body so that we can do these ornate things without trying to do too much, right? So how do we have a balance between the hard work that we do and the pressure that we feel to do something great, and the rest that we need to do to take care of our bodies? Wow says, my child's natal chart has this Mars placement. Ooh, boy. I bet they don't really take no for an answer. Like, I bet they're pretty ambitious. I'm picturing a child with this Mars placement loving to build like really crazy castles out of Legos, you know, like you give them a Lego set and they're like, they sit there for hours just building these ornate structures and pyramids and things like that. You'll have to tell me if they're a builder. So yeah, that would be what a good outlet. If they aren't, that you might want to consider that. Javier says, I'm becoming besties with Hygeia. A good thing to do. Hygeia, the spirit in this decan is the personification of health. Okay, so how do we take care of our health when we're going through these changes and doing this hard work that's necessary? All right, so let's start looking at what kind of things we're going to see through January 1st through the 10th. First of all, let's take a look at, let's bring the chart up here. So there's the chart. As we start out the month, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon are all out of bounds. So again, just a review, these planets are acting outside the normal, socially acceptable way. In some respects, they are more pure expressions of their own intentions. So Mars wants to sever and separate. Mars wants to take action. Mars wants to fight. Venus wants to bring harmony. Venus wants to create beautiful aesthetic things. Mercury wants to communicate. Mercury wants to ask questions, cast things into doubt. The Moon wants to have a supportive, nurturing energy. It wants to feel emotions. So all of these things are going to be, I don't know if they're expanded or they're just much more acute on some level. I think it's an opportunity with caveats. It's an opportunity for us to take actions we might not normally take. It's an opportunity for us to sever from things that we would be too afraid to let go of. All of these are Mars significations. It's an opportunity for us to do something artistic that we might not normally take a risk on, to try something outside the box. Maybe it's a new food, maybe it's a new expression, maybe it's a rebrand. I know both Tanya and I are kind of considering some pretty significant rebrands of our business just as a way to freshen things up a little bit. There's experiments that are happening. Mercury, you may be communicating in a way that you haven't necessarily. You may be trying new ways to bring in income and facilitate exchanges and reciprocity. And with the Moon out of bounds, not as uncommon, but you may be having emotions, feelings, and memories that come up that are that you wouldn't normally be experiencing. So that's the beginning of our month, as all of these planets are out of bounds. It's kind of a wild card beginning. So the first day, we have Mercury squaring Neptune. You can see here Mercury at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, squaring Neptune at 29 degrees Pisces, and then immediately Mercury will move into Capricorn. To me, these planets have, because all of these planets have been moving together, like Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, etc. We've gone through this before. And all of these planets in the previous weeks heading up to this will have squared Neptune and then moved into Capricorn. They haven't all done that yet, okay? They are doing that as we speak, as we record this. But we might feel this visionary quality, this challenge of trying to bring our vision into reality and do it in a way that isn't just completely unrealistic. What I will say, as each of these planets move into Capricorn, it's kind of the wake-up call. It's kind of the sobering call. It says, yeah, that vision is interesting, and it's good to have the vision. It's good to have the vision board. It's good to aspire and know what your values are. Okay, this is what we were talking about with December, is getting clear about what you value and what you want to do. Tanya and I have been talking a lot about this week. This was the first week since Tanya was let go from her job, and she's been home this week, and we've been trying to figure out, like, all right, how do we organize our lives? How do we organize our daily schedules? How do we interact while we're both home, type of thing, for those of you who are used to spending a lot of time alone and then you spend a lot of time with your partner. There's negotiations that happen with that. And we've been going on a lot of walks together, which has been really nice. And a lot of those walks are coinciding with, what do we want to do? What do we want? What value do we want to create in the world? What do we want to give to the world? How do we want that to look? We've talked slightly less about the structure of what that is going to look like, and more about what's the essence of what we're trying to achieve. And when we get clear about the essence and the meaning that we're trying to achieve, that's when the form starts to become clearer. So you say, okay, well, my goal, like for me, this is sort of my research material right here, sacred economics. How do I create a system of exchange that supports me and my family, but also uplifts others without diminishing them? That's my why, right? How do I create abundance and keep the flow of information available to people, whether they have abundant resources or whether they're struggling or not? Like those are important values that I have. So that's my why. And then the form will start to become clearer as we go through that experience. So with Mercury squaring Neptune, you might be asking questions specifically about the means of exchange. Mercury is a liminal planet that facilitates exchanges. And you might be having a lot of thoughts about how to do that. And then things start to get real when Mercury moves into Capricorn. That brings us to our full moon. Okay, so we've got the full moon on the 3rd. Okay, let's see here. We're at the 3rd. So here's our full moon. And let's just bring this full moon here for a second. And I'm going to, that's the new moon. There's the full moon. Okay. And this is an interesting full moon. I'm going to break this down in an entire live stream coming in the weeks ahead, probably next week. I think I'll do this next week. And then I'm going to take a week off. So mark your calendars. Go do something fun with the 3 hours that you save on your Friday. But the full moon in Cancer 2, 13 degrees Cancer. This is an area of the zodiac associated with the three of cups. So here's our Deccan flashcard, 3 of cups. Lord of abundance, the walled garden, Austin Coppock calls it. Like, how do you protect the growth that's happening behind the scenes? As a Cancer 2 natal sun myself, my sun's at 15 degrees Cancer. A lot of my life has been about how do I facilitate healthy growth in a way that is also protective? How do we create safe spaces for people to be themselves and to grow into their fullest potential? This is something that this is a value that we have not only on this channel, but in like our Decanic classes, in our Lord of the Rings classes, any classes that we've done, our book clubs. How do we create that space where people are allowed to be themselves, but also how do people feel protected enough to allow themselves to be vulnerable? A lot of the things that we talk about in Decanic are really personal stories, and we are able to share those personal stories because of the type of environment that we create, one where people feel safe to do so. And these are some of the things you might be considering at this full moon. How do you create structure? The sun in Capricorn 2 with Mars and Venus about to Cazimi. But how do you protect that ambition? How do you protect those structures so that you can get to the renewal points? How do you bring other people into the mix? How do you do it in a way that creates cooperation with others? I would say one of the things that I would suggest with this full moon is you don't necessarily always have to reveal everything that you're working on. One of the things that I learned as a musician, as an artist, is sometimes you don't want to put your song out there too early, right? You want to give a few, have it go through a few drafts. And if you do share it with people, you share it with people you absolutely trust that are going to be honest with you and that you know their feedback is valuable rather than just someone who just wants to take a dump on anybody that they see doing something creative with their lives. So be choosy about who you're sharing your vision with around this period of time. Share it with people you trust or protect it, because just like a caterpillar that's in its cocoon, it's in a vulnerable state. If you try to open that cocoon too early, things aren't fully formed yet, and it can be sort of a false start, right? It could be an aborted type of birth, right? So we want to make sure that we're protecting things that are important to us around this period of time, and we have to balance that out with becoming tough, right? Capricorn is a tough sign. It's a sign that says this terrain is really rocky, mountainous. You're probably not going to have all the cornucopia that you might have in summertime with all the fruits and vegetables that are ripening and abundant. You're going to have to eat some lembas bread if you're on the journey to Mordor, right? You're going to have to eat some crusty old bread that isn't so tasty, but it gets the job done, right? So how do you balance all of these things out at this full moon in Cancer? The good news about this full moon is those planets, Venus and Mars, are going to be moving into that cazimi condition. And I would also say some good news is that the moon is co-present with Jupiter, which often brings some good fortune. The moon is also in a place that it likes to be in. So that is also very positive. When you have a planet that is in its own domicile, it has access to the resources it needs. So you might have the emotional support you need to take on a more ambitious project. KWOW says, yes, that tracks. He always loves building Lego sets and likes to take them on by himself. There you go, right? We were talking about KWOW's child has Mars in Capricorn too. And giving the planet something to do, like build something, can be a really positive way to make friends with those placements. Sometimes if we have planetary placements and we go through it with ignorance or a non-K, we can tend to manifest some of the negative parts of that. But if we consciously work with these energies and give it a job, like building something, they may be less destructive. Mars may be less destructive when it's given something to do. Painted Turtle is here. What's up, friend? How you doing, Lauren? It's been a while. Hope everything's going well your way and that life is treating you well, my friend. Nice to see you in the chat here again. Paintings by Mare is stopping in. What's up, Mare? Hi from windy and strangely warm day in Maine, listening while painting a new series of songbirds. Ooh, cool. My favorite bird. I got my favorite bird behind me. I don't know if y'all can see it. No, you can't. It's blurred out. It's a nuthatch. My grandfather made me a wooden carving of a nuthatch, which is super cool. And it's one of my most cherished possessions because it's one of a kind and it was given to me from someone that I care deeply about. So I hope that you're drawing some cool stuff there. Marietta says, my moon is in Cancer. Oh my goodness. I just did my nails in Christmas colors, red, white, and sparkly gold. Oh, I love it. Oh, and you've got a crying session this morning. Well, sometimes that can be cathartic, friend. So yeah, hopefully everything's going well. Okay, let's keep going. What do you say? So there's our full moon on the 3rd. Let's add the chart back up here, see where we're at. And we'll get back to, let's just get back to these transits. There we go. Let's go back to noon. Like that'll give us kind of an overview around the noon hour. So these are noon charts we're looking at. Okay, so if we start looking at how that full moon's going to unfold, first major kind of thing that we're looking at, and this is going to be a period of time between the 6th and the 9th where both Venus and Mars are going to renew themselves in the heart of the sun. So here's January 6th. You can see Venus and the sun are coming together. It's going to actually happen at 16 degrees of Capricorn. That is very close to a fixed star called Vega, which is in a constellation, the Lyre of Orpheus, right? So there are some significations in this decan around music, around creativity, around energy that sort of soothes the savage beast, you could say. Orpheus had just this magical quality about him where he could really soothe stressful situations, and he could make wild beasts tame with his music. So an interesting place for Venus, right? Around Vega in the 2nd decan of Capricorn. Maybe there is some musical element that you can bring into this Venus cazimi. I know we've been experimenting in the newsletter with the song of the week, so hopefully that's bringing some of you some peace And a really interesting start for Venus here. So just some dates to consider with the Venus cazimi. When we're looking at a cycle of a planet, there's three important points for its solar cycle. It's when the planet goes under the beams of the sun, okay? That's when it's sort of taking to its sickbed. It's an old Venus, and it's becoming invisible. This is where we start doing some things behind the scene. The planet is, quote unquote, dying behind the scenes to be reborn at this cazimi moment. So we always want to really connect three dates. So November the 5th, Venus went under the beams of the sun at 28 degrees of Libra, third 10-degree section of Libra, in its own domicile, powerful place for Venus. So go back and look at November the 5th and see what was going on in your life, because you can make connections to what seeds you are planting when you understand what you were letting go of around that period of time. So we have the November the 5th, Venus under the beams, becomes invisible, working behind the scenes since then. We have the cazimi on January 6th, 16 degrees Capricorn, as we see here. Rebirth of purpose, rebirth of energy for Venus. You can also take a look at Libra and Taurus topics in your life to see what is being reborn. In my Leo rising chart, Venus rules the 10th house, okay, Taurus, and the 3rd house, Libra. So I may be getting a rebirth in my public face, my career, and the way that I interact with neighbors or things of that nature. And you could do the same thing in your own chart. The emerging of Venus from under the beams and becoming visible is the next space that you want to take a look at. And Venus is going to emerge as the evening star, okay, where it rises after the sun at 2 degrees of Aries on March the 8th, okay, conjoining Saturn. So we see Venus kind of dying, okay, in Libra, cazimi in Capricorn, and then emerging in Aries. Interesting, right? So it might be this kind of this transition of Venus from maybe relying on other people and moving more towards self-reliance, maybe more towards an individual expression, maybe more towards kind of doing things that are an expression of who we truly are without necessarily having to ask permission or caring what other people think. Hard to do sometimes. But I think it's really powerful to track those cycles. So think about whatever seeds that you're trying to build and then see the revelation of those things happening around early March. Let's see. Wow, we got a lot of, let's see. Marietta, you got your caps lock on? It says, I have a need to knit or do something with my hands. You know what? And if you need the caps lock on, if you're just really excited, that's okay. Mare says, I love nuthatch. It's part of my series for sure. It's an awesome bird. I've been having these experiences out. There's a place called Kensington Metro Park around where I live. And for some reason, the birds are very tame there. Probably decades of people, feeding them. And the nuthatches and the chickadees and even some titmice and woodpeckers will land in your hand and eat out of your hands. Super cool experience. And the nuthatches are always so interesting because they can climb down trees and they represent, this is why this is such a powerful symbol, I think, for me and my grandfather. They represent bringing wisdom down from the ether in and grounding it and making it practical, making it useful. And that's something that I really love being able to do for everybody. Oh, you had a cathartic cry. Good. Love it. Venus is pretty prominent in the charts. Definitely. Got to help her cry, Ron. I wanted to take up the harp, but I play the violin. Nice. Oh, got it. Love it. Profound planetary movement. Yes, I've been feeling that independent energy. Sorry, I do this. It's a bad habit. No, it's okay. You just are. It's very enthusiastic, and I love your enthusiasm. So if it is an expression of your enthusiasm, then it's all good with me, friend. Okay, let's keep going. So right after Venus is Cazimi, it will conjoin Mars at about, what is the degrees here? I've got it all written down. 18 degrees. 18 degrees. If we go forward a day here, we have Venus and Mars conjoining about 18 degrees of Capricorn. And this is interesting because when Venus and Mars come together, sometimes the resources that we need and the ability to take action come together. So after we get this Cazimi, think of Cazimi and the sun as a big spotlight. It says, I'm going to shine a big spotlight on what you need to do or what you might desire to do. When Venus meets Mars, having those resources and being able to take action on those resources is facilitated. The other thing that's really, I think, positive about this Venus-Mars conjunction. So first of all, Mars is exalted, so that's good. We might be able to take actions that are sustainable over time. This is the end of the malefic enclosure. Okay, so once we cross over to the next day, the 8th here, now Venus is being able to cast its ray, all right, in between where Saturn and Mars are casting their ray. So Saturn's casting its ray on one side, Mars is casting a ray over here, and Venus is breaking it up. So Venus effectively ends the malefic enclosure of Jupiter. So there may be something where you're having some nice support from people around you and getting the resources that you need to bring back some of that hope. So that to me is really positive. That's going to lead to the Mars Cazimi on the 9th. So here is Mars at 19 degrees, okay, making its renewal in the heart of the sun. So the cool thing about this is many areas and topics of our life are coming together to be renewed. So not only are the topics related to the Taurus house and the Libra house in your chart being renewed, but also that renewal is going to lead to a renewal in your Scorpio and Aries parts of your chart. So like I just talked about a Leo rising chart with the 10th and the 3rd house. It also might lead to a renewal with my 9th in Aries and my 4th in Scorpio. So these are big changes that are happening where a lot of the different areas of our life are coming together for new starts. And that's kind of exciting, right? Especially as we've been leaving old things behind. All right, let's see. Mare says, the birds are heart openers. The series is all about cultivating compassion. Ooh, I love it. Oh, I love it. That's perfectly in alignment with what we're doing here on this channel. So happy that you're putting that energy out into the world, and hopefully some of the things we talk about here will inspire some of those beautiful paintings. Lauren says, I love the caps. Yeah, I think that, we do have the black mode on, so I like seeing it in bold, and I love contributing exciting energy to your life. Yeah, you know what? You do you. Like that's part of the way that we roll on this channel is you be yourself. And if you're coming with the spirit of enthusiasm and kindness, it's all good, friend. All right. There you go. Good news to hear. All right. So Mars Cazimi. This is another point of having a malefic planet, but an exalted malefic planet renewed in the heart of the sun. This one's pretty exciting, I think, because not only do we have a Mars that is very good at taking strategic action, it's getting a power boost from the sun. So all of the plans that you're making could be getting this extra boost of energy and of vitality. So I think what is really important to do in the beginning of the month, you need a strategy. You need to get organized. You need to be able to do something that is associated, I think, with delayed gratification. I think this is what Mars works best in. Mars is able to take action, but in a way that doesn't burn themselves out, which sometimes can be like a Mars and Aries thing where Mars in Aries is great for starting things, but it's not really sustained energy. When Mars is in Libra, sometimes those actions we can't take until we ask permission of someone else. This is a Mars that says, I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to make a blueprint. I'm going to show up every day. I'm going to do the hard work that's necessary to get things done. And I'm going to make something of it. I always look at one of the ways that I analyze my little guilty pleasure of sports. Sports charts are really hard to delineate because many times we don't have a birth time. So one of the ways I've learned to delineate whether an athlete is going to have success or not is whether the ruler of their sun is in good condition or not. Now, recently we had some crazy injuries that happened over the last weekend. In particular, a guy named Mike Parsons, person I root for, tore his ACL, and he had the sun activating his Mars retrograde in Libra, and another guy on the team that had Mars retrograde in Libra also got injured. So that was a tough day. But the point being is both the coach, for those of you who are, I won't belabor this too much, but this is an interesting point as far as seeing the condition of this planet and how it's going to get energized. And I want you to track this if you want another way to track Mars Cazimi. So the team that I follow, the Green Bay Packers, I grew up a Packer fan. It was sort of a family inheritance from my grandparents who were from Wisconsin. The coach of the Packers is a Scorpio sun. The quarterback of the Packers is a Scorpio sun. And when Mars was in Cazimi, or not Cazimi, but Mars was in Capricorn 2 years ago, they went on this crazy playoff run. They were performing at a very high level, and Mars was the host of their sun. So if you have an Aries or a Scorpio sun or planets in those places, Mars is going to be providing from a very exalted place. And this condition is happening again. And I'm going to test this. I'm going to see how well these guys perform, because a lot of pressure is on them now that one of their other best players, Mike Parsons, got injured. One thing I've noticed too, and these are just some random thoughts, but if you have a lot of Scorpio placements in your chart, sometimes you're at your best when your back is against the wall. When people have counted you out and left you for dead, Scorpio is really great at defending the dying life force. And I'm kind of excited I'm not excited. I don't ever like to see people injured, but I always am a little bit intrigued when there is a lot of adversity with Scorpio athletes, because they often perform at their best when the chips are down. So this is another way of saying too, if you've been facing adversity lately, this may be an opportunity, this Mars Cazimi, Mars exalted in Capricorn, to really fight your way out of it, right? I know in our family situation, we had a job loss. We had a budget cut job loss. And now we're having to really kind of fight our way to figure out where our next kind of security is going to be coming from. What our new structures are going to be that are going to support all of the things all the responsibilities that we have. And that can actually lead to some exalted outcomes. Sometimes we don't take the actions necessary to build abundance or to try new things if everything's status quo. Here's an example of this using my sports metaphor. Bear with me. A guy like Micah Parsons, he's a phenomenal, ridiculous athlete. He's a 6'3", 250-pound linebacker that runs, if any of you are familiar with running, he runs a 4.3 40. That's crazy and ridiculous and really like special and unique. One of the problems is he was so good that everyone else kind of watched him and may not have been working at their own best capacity because they were like, well, Micah's going to do something incredible. That can limit other people's potential. When you lose something like that, when you lose something special like that, it forces other people to step up. If we play that metaphor out into a non-sports analogy, if you lose something that you took for granted in your life, it may force you into doing something in a way that you might normally not do. Like this, I'm excited for my coach and my quarterback of my team because they're going to be forced to think outside the box. They're going to be forced to make up new innovative ways of utilizing the players that they do have to be able to survive, because they have to. They can't rely on this one special player anymore. You might not be able to rely on your one special thing that you had that you were attached to. And it may force you outside of your comfort zone, but may lead to even better outcomes because of that. That's kind of neat to me, and an opportunity to turn a negative into a positive. So think about that as we're going through the Cazimi of Mars, is how do we turn what initially looks like a really difficult blow of fate and turn it into the types of risk-taking that we need to build structure that we might not have been able to build had things been the same. All right. All right. So let's keep going. So if we look at the time period, the end of Capricorn 2, from the 9th to the 14th, we are going to have a series of planets that are going to oppose Jupiter. So you could see here this big stack up of planets. Mercury, okay, Venus, Sun, Mars. They're all going to oppose Jupiter here. And generally, they're going to be opposing from the third decans of these two places. Mercury will oppose Jupiter retrograde from the second decan to the second decan of Cancer. But the Sun, Mars, and Venus all are going to be opposite from Capricorn 3 to Cancer 3. So this is an opportunity to kind of break down what Capricorn 3 means, because we're going to see the sun start to move into this decan, and these themes are going to play out for these other planets as well. So let's take a look at that first. But the 9th through the 14th, all these planets opposing Jupiter. Now, just from the big picture of thought, we talked about this a little bit earlier in the show. It's funny, Lauren, that you showed up today. I was thinking about you the other day. I was like, I wonder where Lauren is. I wonder where Lauren's been. You have to let me know what you're working on, Lauren. I bet it's something exciting. Synchronicity. But I think that the main theme with these planets opposing Jupiter is thinking about that quality of how do we create abundance in a way that doesn't necessarily create scarcity for somebody else. And how do we share resources versus hoard resources? How do we do this in multiple areas of our life? One of the things I like about Charles Eisenstein's book is he talks about different non-Western cultures. And like, yes, there are some of these cultures that are living in abject poverty. He talks about that half the world is living on less than $2 a day. And in some of those cases, that is a very bad thing. In other cases, their lives are richer than ours in Western civilization for reasons that not every part of their society is monetized. We don't have to have this like exchange of this imaginary fiat currency for everything. They have a communal way of living that is based on reciprocal help of one another. Like, for example, like they may be, if someone doesn't have enough food, the community comes together to feed them. If they don't have enough childcare, the community comes together to take care of those children. And it's not based on money. And that to me is an interesting place to explore, because as wealthy of a nation that America is, there is something that is so impoverished about it that we're missing so many things. There's an emptiness and a loneliness that comes with this a lot of the time. And it's because that this feeling of scorekeeping through the language of fiat currency is dehumanizing in a lot of ways. It's not how we evolved as a species. We are actually much more communal of a species than we like to think. And I think that these oppositions are going to be having us asking a lot of these questions. Now, one of the things I will bring up here is we'll start looking at this decan flashcard related to Capricorn, and this will give us some insights into this. We already kind of looked at Cancer 3 a little bit. We'll look at that again in a minute. But keep this in mind as these planets come into opposition. So Sun in Capricorn 3. We talked about the building quality of Capricorn 2. We had a Mars ruled decan. Now we have a solar face in a Saturn rule sign. Okay. Sun associated with authority, with like taking responsibility, of power. So this decan is called the Lord of Earthly Power, or the Lord of Power in Book of Thoth and Book T. Austin Cobbett calls it the throne. And you can see here you have someone sitting on the throne and potentially hoarding these solar discs, holding very tightly onto their resources. This decan, it has themes associated with administration of power, CEOs, kings, thrones, feeling the weight of our responsibility, but also there's a signification of feeling enslaved to the material world, of gathering and hoarding wealth. And in the Kabbalistic tree of life, this is a Jupiter Sephira. 4s are associated with Jupiter on the Kabbalistic tree of life. So there's a secret Jupiter signification here where sometimes we have more of the element than we need, right? So gathering material wealth, but Hesed and Asya is what we're talking about, hoarding the flow. And in this case, this king is hoarding resources. Now you don't necessarily have to manifest the lowest nature of this. What's the higher nature of this? Well, I know a number of Capricorn 3 type people in my life. My daughter is a Capricorn 3 sun. My partner is a Capricorn 3 rising. I've got some other Cap 3 people in my life that I care about. One thing that I've noticed with them is that they are good at taking on responsibilities. Sometimes they don't even ask for them. They just show up and do the work, and they're reliable. So there is a reliability to this decan. So questions you can ask yourselves: what responsibilities have you taken on or been given? And how do you meet these? How do you manage the power you've been given gracefully? When you inevitably have to deal with resources, whether it's material resources or the resources of relationships, do you hoard these or do you allow them to flow through you? The negative Capricorn 3, someone like, I keep using the example, Jeffrey Bezos, like he's an endpoint. He's not a circulator of that money. He has hoarded that wealth. Whereas another example we talked about in Decan Walk class recently, Dolly Parton, somebody who is a philanthropist, who is using those resources to better her community rather than be an endpoint for that flow. So do you own the possessions or do they own you? A lot of the themes that we talk about with this decan relate to like King Midas themes, like where if everything you touch turns to gold, well, you can't eat it. You can't eat gold. You can't hug a gold statue. I guess you can, but it's not going to hug you back, you know? So questions of asking yourself, how much is enough? You know, when can you say this is enough? I don't need more. How can I circulate that within my community? And then finally, is the throne that you find yourself on, is it a palace? You know, is it something that is supporting you, or is it a prison? A lot of Capricorn themes. If you look at the major arcana card with Capricorn, it's the devil. And in it, you can see 2 figures. I'll find the devil card for you. The devil card shows us the power of desire to make us prisoners. We can be prisoners of desire. And Capricorn is a planet that talks about feeling imprisoned within the castle walls, within our expectations, within our material desires. Here's the devil card. You can see that they're chained to that block, right? It's loose. Those chains are loose, though. Some of this is a choice. So do we become victims of our desire, or are we able to manage them? Do we become victims of our power? Do we become attached to power to the point where we just will do anything to keep it? Or do we utilize that power in service of others? And a lot of these questions are going to come up as, how do you become empowered? How do you become a responsible person in your community while also manifesting some of these Cancer 3 qualities with the oppositions to Jupiter here? Okay. The overflowing cup. What do you do when you have more than you need? If you have more than you need, how can you philanthropically help others with that? If you don't have what you need, how can you open yourself up to receiving? How can you receive the help that you need? Charles Eisenstein makes great points in this book. I really recommend this. We should do a book club on it, Sacred Economics. How do we become facilitators? How do we become circulators? And how do we increase the effectiveness of the distribution of the abundance on this planet, rather than just seeing it consolidated in individuals or individual countries, individual people, individual handfuls of consolidated power? How do we distribute this? Because there are a lot of people that are going without, and it's not because there's not enough food in the world. It's because we're not getting it to the right places. So really important reflections to think about as we move forward. And how do we give without dictating the means of return? In a gift culture, in a gift society, we share because we understand that nature abhors a vacuum. And when we give, that energy is going to circulate back to us when it is appropriate, when we need it. Someone is going to have our back. You know what I'm saying? And we give because we understand that reciprocal flow of energy. We're not hoarding it. We're not afraid to give because of scarcity. We know that it will cycle back around. And it's a lot of interesting reflections. It's really challenging me. Because I know that for me, I have Mercury in Cancer 3 retrograde in the 12th. And sometimes, two things. Sometimes I get in a scarcity mindset. Sometimes I get in an overgenerous mindset. I don't know if it's overgenerous, but my exchanges aren't always equal. And I have to kind of feel through, okay, how do I create abundance for others without diminishing them or myself? How do I get past my fear of scarcity? All of those things. All of those things are challenging me to think of exchanges and circulation of resources in a different way. And I hope that we can inspire those discussions moving forward. Let's see. Marietta says, prisoners of desires. You're preaching to the choir. I'm working hard to manage. Ooh, yes. I have some book recommendations too from Chogyam Trungpa. Ooh, yeah, send them over. I've got a number of new ways of doing economics books. I've got this one, Charles Eisenstein. I've got The Braiding Sweetgrass and The Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Another Charles The More Beautiful World We Know in Our Hearts is Possible. Cradle to Cradle, talking about how to make things so that we aren't doing it with planned obsolescence, which is crazily just destructive for our world. How do we make things that are going to be able to not create waste, right? And they're going to stand the test of time. I have another book by Lewis Hyde called The Gift, which is another book I'm excited to read. A lot of cool books in that regard. Indigenous Economics is another one. Indigenous Economics, Sustaining Peoples and Their Lands by Ronald Trosper. Whew, so many books to read. A lot of these that were brought to me through the bibliography in Robin Wall Kimmerer's books. She really started me on this path. And I think it's been something that has been on my mind for a long time, is how do we create a more just system that's more in alignment with how nature really works. Javier says, I've been thinking about this lately. I wanted to help with donations to the mental facility that just helped me. Overheard some staff talking, and I don't drive. Through the block brainstorming came about, something I'm looking into. Yeah, no, that's a great impulse, Javiera. I think that when we receive help, human beings are innately generous. That's something that I'm realizing is when we get a gift, we feel that gratitude. And Charles talks a lot about how life itself is a gift, right? This gift of consciousness, this gift that we were given. When we were babies, we were given, we were in alignment with this gift economy already, because we received love and nurturing and food without any expectation of return, right? And yes, we've had some traumatic experiences with maybe some unhealthy parents, but for the most part, when we were little babies, They took care of us, and it was a gift that we were receiving. And how do we get return to that? When we receive something like for example, we've been snow blowing our neighbors' walkways, and just because we were like, oh, it's easy to do and it's a nice thing to do. And like one day we found like a box of cookies on our porch from them, and we're like, whoa, that's really nice. And like the whole time, like what I wanted to do was just like, be like, I got to give them something. I need to give something else. I need to at least acknowledge that they gave this to us, for days I was like, how do I thank them? Because I don't have their phone number, and like I see them sporadically, but the innate feeling of gratitude of someone doing something nice for you, we want to reciprocate that. So this is something I think that we can work through as a community. Lauren says, Restoring the Kind-Shift Worldview is a book I'm going through from the library right now. Ooh, I like that. An indigenous download of many interesting, conflicting societal concepts as well. Lauren, I love it when I get a book recommendation. I'm going to take a picture of the screen here, and I'm going to try to find it. Anytime someone brings a book to my attention, I'm getting it. So I love it. Marietta says, oh, so you must know Louis Rossman. That's why my profile pic is a Clippy. I hate planned obsolescence. Yes, planned obsolescence really bugs me. And that is a name I'm not familiar with yet, but I'm still new to all of these different authors. So send me your recommendations. Mayor says, because of your suggestion, I listened to Braiding Sweetgrass. Now I'm reading with my partner. We read it to each other in the evenings. It is lovely. Thank you, Spencer. Oh, I love it. Oh, man, that's the greatest gift you can give me, Mayor. When someone takes on a recommendation I make for a book and it changes their life, that makes me feel really good. So thank you for that feedback. And I hope that it's changing, your relationships and with nature and with each other for the better. Javier says, yes, feeling that. How can I give back to someone helping me so much? I get stuck. I'm just too thankful. Yeah. And you know what? You don't necessarily have to reciprocate the exact same way with the help that you received, or even at the same time. This is what we learn about gift economies. Just that feeling, you hold on to that feeling so that when your opportunity comes, when you see an opportunity to give, when you trust in the universe to provide, when you give something, you know that something will come back to you. This is how we get less attached to hoarding our resources, is we have faith that even if it creates a vacuum, if it creates a void, it will find us in a new way. And it doesn't necessarily have to be you give someone money and they give you money back later. It could be the exchange of time. It could be an exchange of just empathy. I keep using my neighbor as an example. I know I use the same anecdotes, but my neighbor has helped me learn about tools, and I talk to him about his divorce and give him an ear to listen to. Me and him were chatting on his porch the other day, and I offered to help him apply for SNAP benefits because he's a senior who's having some health problems, and he needed a boost, and he actually asked for help. Like he's very prideful, so he comes from a generation of men that aren't always great for asking for help. And he asked me for help this weekend to help him do that. And I was honored for that. And I want to help. So you never know how these exchanges are going to go. Like a few months ago, he helped me cut some wood for the raised bed that we were putting in. Like we shouldn't dictate how these exchanges should go. We just do it with the spirit, right? And you'd be surprised at how those things come back to you. Maria says, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam. I'm going to take a picture of this one too. Love it. Right? And another thing I like about Charles Eisenstein is he talks a lot about, yes, we do have greed in our culture, but how do we get past just the blame of greed? There's a different way of thinking about it, because if we just like, well, there's these greedy people, it's disempowering. How do we get past that and start thinking about just economics in a completely different way? And again, I will be able to formulate these thoughts better when I finish the book. I'm about two or three chapters in, but it's already blowing my mind. Yes. How can I give back when money isn't really in abundance I have to offer? Exactly. You could volunteer, Javier. You could go back to that hospital and give them your time. You could go back there and you could share the program that helped you with somebody that needs that help. You could connect them with that program. There's so many different ways to help. Like on our channel here, not everybody can donate physical resources to the channel, but they can share it with their friends. It's really easy to share it with your friends. I hit the like button, subscribe. Okay. There's all sorts of things you can do. Just your attention is an exchange. All of those things. Lauren says, when you can't return the favor, pass it on. It's how the energy would prefer to move. Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly right. I needed to hear it. Thank you, Javier. Says, appreciate you, friend. Okay, let's keep going. So Sun in Capricorn 3, January 10th through January 19th. Let's just go back and recognize that this is going to be part of the themes that we're working through when we have the Sun here, or these planets, the Sun, Mars, Venus, all opposing Jupiter. Remember, we talked about Jupiter as how do we create win-win situations? How do we create abundance without creating scarcity for somebody else? So those are going to be difficult questions. I've been thinking a lot about this. Like, I need to sort of change some of my business model to be able to pick up some of the slack from my partner losing her job. And I'm motivated because I love my partner and I don't want her to have to carry that entire burden, right? And some of that motivation will have to change some of the ways that I do business. But it's all about faith in the process, faith in not necessarily seeing things through the eyes of lack and through the eyes of love. Okay. So the first thing that we have beyond some of these oppositions with Jupiter is the last quarter moon. This one's really fascinating to me on the 10th, because here we have those oppositions, okay? And we have the moon at about 20 degrees of Libra, and I'm going to move this forward here. And now we have a T-square, okay? And a T-square between Jupiter, the Sun, Mars, and Venus. So this is, I think the moon's going to be helping. The moon's saying, at this last quarter moon on January 10th, the moon says, all right, you've got these two opposing forces. You need physical resources. You want to do things that are keeping those resources flowing and circulating. You don't want to become a hoarder, but you do need to pay your bills, your mortgage, whatever it is. How do you maintain your center when you're trying to hold what sometimes feels like two opposing forces? The need to accumulate versus the need to circulate. Well, the moon can give us some insight to that. The moon says balance. The moon says little adjustments. How can you maintain your composure while you're going through those challenges? How can you become the eye of the storm? This is really what the moon is doing in the second or third decan of Libra. It's kind of applying pretty closely to the fixed star Spica, which is associated with gifts. So being able to have a balance between getting your own needs met and then providing for your community, that helps to keep the exchanges healthy. If you're always giving away everything that you have to the point where you are hurting yourself, that's not necessarily healthy giving. You give what you have to give, right? And if what you have to give isn't money, you don't want to give all your money away if you need to pay your car payment or if you need to pay your mortgage. What you do want to do is, if you have time to give, you want to give your time. If you have empathy to give, you want to give your empathy. If you have knowledge that you need to that you can share, if you have an abundance of that, well, that's something that you can give. So thinking about how you can give in ways that aren't necessarily apples to apples, important at this last quarter moon. Okay, let's do this before we get going. We got another one here. Shambhala, the Sacred Path of the Warrior, is a book concerning the Shambhala Buddhist vision of the founder, Chogyam Trungpa. All right, I took a picture of it. I got all these good book suggestions here in the chat. I love it. Maru is here. Says, hey, friends, I arrived late, but I am here. What's up, Mariana? Nice to see you. Joining us, I believe, from Germany via Argentina, if I'm not mistaken. Cheers to you. Hope everything's going well your way. Mariana, we're going to take a little stretch break here before we continue on. So, friends, appreciate you being here with me today. We're going through the Astrology of January 2026. Usually we kind of do a long form, kind of an astrological kind of experience here. I'm not much for short form content, even though someone emails me every other day being like, do you want to increase your numbers on YouTube? Make more shorts. I'm sure that's true. But I just like spending time with all of you in a more lengthy, maybe less times a week, but for a longer period of time where we can go in depth in all of this. That's what we're missing in this world sometimes, is some depth. Everybody wants instant gratification. Everybody's attention span is destroyed by short form content. We're going to buck that trend here with long form content. If you like this, I mean, keep coming. I mean, that's the main thing. Appreciate all of you who come back each week. But like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, sign up for the newsletter, go support my partner over at Third Coast Mojo. Remember, she has some awesome Jupiter and Cancer material that just got released. Exalted Jupiter. It's good stuff. Sorry, I'm stretching out my hips. Stretch out your hips. Get a drink of water. Sing a song. Sing a song. The song of the week was The Finer Things by Steve Winwood. I consider Steve Winwood my emotional support musician, mostly because there was a lot of that playing when I was a really young person on the radio in my house. I think my mom and my dad both liked Steve Winwood a lot, and just get good vibes from The Finer Things. Valerie, another great one. Oh man, Valerie's great. What else? Higher Love. Those early 80s Steve Winwood songs, just amazing. Just go listen to it. It's hard to feel bad when you're listening to Steve Winwood. All right, friends, let's get back to it. Checking in with the chat here. That's right. Maru says, cooking dinner. Nice. Mayor says, I appreciate long form content. Oh, thank you, Mayor. I'm glad there's people that will stick with us for a couple hours. It's such an honor that all of you stick with me for so long. Appreciate you. Lauren says, I'm curious if Tanya likes to be on the channel. Perhaps if you go into a money mode, you could have a day where she's featured in collab. I know she's a sci-fi movie buff. Something fun could be the astrology of her favorite movies. Anything's on the table right now, Lauren. I am considering just doing a YouTube membership type of thing, or a Patreon membership. I'm trying to weigh that with like, well, is a Kickstarter a better way to go? I've seen other people do Kickstarters. What I'm meditating on, what things I can offer, that will do all those things. If I were to do like a YouTube membership, I would try to keep as much of the content still available, or maybe for just a small donation to participate in other chat things or things like that. If this is something that resonates with all of you, like, let me know. I love all the feedback on it. Again, I'm not doing this because I'm greedy. I'm doing this out of necessity. So we're facing a little bit of a hardship with my family, and we got to figure out our new way forward. And that's just change, right? That's just change. And Third Coast Mojo, that's another thing we're putting a lot of energy into. So supporting Tanya is also supporting me, because we're a team. So I appreciate all of you who have supported her business, and my daughter, Sag Moon Magic. Rachel says, I love long form too. Whenever I see a multi-hour presentation or podcast by someone I admire, I get so excited. Nice. Rachel, you've always been such an awesome supporter of the show. So thank you for being here today again. Marietta says, you should do a musician of the week along with your spiritual animal and I-Ching reading. Ooh, that's a good idea. Well, for now, it's a little incentive to sign up for the newsletter so that you can get your song of the week there. But yes, those are good ideas. Patreon is good. I already have an account there. Okay. Also, Ko-Fi, coffee. Oh, yeah. Well, so here's the thing, folks. Coffee is very much like Buy Me a Coffee. That is a Patreon-like website. It's just, I don't know if people really understand that that's a way to support this channel in the same way that Patreon is. There's memberships there too. I just haven't really fleshed it out. I don't know. Yeah, Leanne says you cannot pour from an empty cup. Amen to that. Yep, I agree. So there will be a lot of experimenting going on. And I just want you all to know that I'm doing my best, and I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody. And the oppositions that I talked about with Mars and the Sun and Venus, they're hitting my natal Sun and Mercury real hard. So those dynamics are hitting your local friendly neighborhood astrologer super hard. And, I think it's hitting a lot of people hard. A lot of people are struggling right now to figure out how to support themselves, and especially because cost of living has changed in America, and health insurance has gotten really expensive lately. And, my partner is losing her health insurance from her job. So we're having to go purchase health insurance, which used to be like between $200 and $400 a month, and that same insurance is between $700 and $900 a month now because of the changes in the government. So it's a little bit of a time where everybody's trying to figure out what's going to work moving forward. Yeah. Yep. It's funny. Hey, that exalted Venus in the wintertime would be a great time for a fundraiser of the musical sort. Live music. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Good ideas, though. No bad ideas in the brainstorm. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a lot of things, Marietta. It's not just one individual, although, yes, I think that there's definitely some blame to be put on that individual that you mentioned, but it's more of a systemic issue. And I think that's why I'm trying to read about different systems, because it's a belief system. It's not just one exploitive, greedy person, although we can look at a handful of people that just don't necessarily have the type of ethics that we would as a community. But I think it's more of a bigger mindset shift. And I can't quite put my finger on exactly what that looks like yet, but I'm doing the research to figure it out. So bear with me. Lauren says, that beautiful voice of yours put to use, a free exchange of energy without expectation of anything but the live experience instead of offering more and more work. Yeah, that's the real question. And I won't belabor this too much longer, but these are great ideas. When you're doing like a Patreon or like a YouTube memberships, I'm already doing a ton of work for this channel, friends. It takes me, like, I spent all day yesterday doing, this is what new notes look like. I did 5 pages of these to get my brain around this so that it goes as smoothly as it usually does. And sometimes just figuring out how to keep offering more and more and more is hard. Like, it's hard to figure out sometimes how to do more things and keep your mental health and not burn yourself out. And it's another value that I have. So trying to figure out how to do that and just keep the same healthy balance in my life that's sometimes a challenging question. We're not always going to get it right, but that's why we work this out as a group. Trauma Raised Me says, yes, this is systemic. Health insurance is literally paid to tell you, no, we can't help you. Yeah, a really tough problem that is, especially in America. For being such a wealthy country, not being able to take care of people with basic healthcare needs is a real failing, and something that we as a community should really be pushing on people, calling your senators, calling your representatives to really push back on this, because everybody should be entitled to having healthcare. Lauren says, you've done the work with the decans, dignity, and devotion. They are gold. You just need a bit of light on the excellent work already masterfully crafted. Appreciate that, friend. Yeah. So, friends, if you want to support the channel, go purchase the webinars at the store, because there's a lot of great information in there, and we could use your support. So thank you, everyone who has been here today. All right, back to it. All right, friends. Let me see where we were at. So we were talking about the last quarter moon, and then we get to the 15th through the 17th. Now, this is the first time that we have a planet that's going through that kind of pattern that I was alerting you to. So Venus, the Sun, Mars, and Mercury are all going to repeat this pattern. And I like I said, I didn't have enough banners to do all of this, so I had to consolidate it. Venus will sextile Saturn and Neptune. So you see here, Venus, 27 degrees of Capricorn, sextile Saturn at 27 Pisces. It will then, a few days later, sextile Neptune in Pisces at 29 degrees. Before it does that, or in between that, it will make a trine. Excuse me. It will make a trine with Uranus. So how can we break this down holistically? Because these are rapid fire aspects that each of these planets are going to make. Well, let's first talk about Venus. Venus is going to be helping us through Capricorn 3 to harmonize the way that we promote our positions of authority, the way that we take on responsibility, I guess could be another way to say that. And with the sextiles to Saturn and Neptune, these are sextiling a decan that is related to understanding the sacrifices necessary and the wild swings of emotion that can happen through sacrifice to be able to bring your vision into reality. So I like the fact that these are earth-water relationships and then very earthy relationships. So first, the sextile to Saturn says, okay, let's get realistic about our vision. Then the trine to Uranus says, let's think a little bit outside the box. Let's try something new and practical, okay? And then it will sextile Neptune and then move into Aquarius. So after all of these very practical seed planting types of things, it will move into more of a, I wouldn't say idealistic is the right term, although you could describe it as that, as more of a ephemeral, less tangible, bigger picture thinking. So these planets are going to be moving from a very tangible, practical place to one that is more about creating mental and belief structures rather than physical structures. Okay, so that's going to be happening between the 15th and the 17th. The Sun is going to go through the exact same series from the 17th to the 19th. So now the Sun's going to sextile Saturn and trine Uranus and then sextile Neptune before moving into Aquarius. Okay, so let's see here. Now, in the middle of those two planets making that arrangement of transitory aspects, we're going to have the new moon in Capricorn 2. So here is the new moon in Capricorn 3, excuse me, new moon at 28 degrees of Capricorn on the 18th. And you can see here that the new moon is co-present with Mercury and Mars, exalted Mars, Mercury in Capricorn. Venus will have already been moved into Aquarius and starting to apply to Pluto. All of these planets are still opposing Jupiter, but it's separating. And the new moon is sextile Saturn and Neptune. Now, the biggest thing that I'm seeing with this is this new moon, you know, think about all the themes we talked about with the Four of Pentacles, Capricorn 3, taking on responsibility, trying to gather wealth, trying to serve your communities, all of those things. The big thing with this is this kicks off the Hellenistic void of course moon. So Mercury will conjoin Mars on that day. So a lot of discussions around what actions to take to be a good leader. But then the moon will conjoin Venus when it moves into Aquarius. And once it does, check this out. Come check this. I'm just reminded. This is a song that oftentimes Tanya will use when she's advertising things. So that's the thing that come up in my mind. Come check this. You know, that's like a house song. I don't even know who it is, but I like it. Also, there's a lot of Daft Punk songs that come to mind thinking about that, but I digress. So look at when the moon is going to conjoin Venus right here, okay? So this is Sunday the 18th, and once it passes the conjunction with Venus, it doesn't make a traditional aspect for 48 degrees, 4 days. The next aspect it makes is a trine to Jupiter from the middle degrees of Pisces. So this is starting off a Hellenistic void of course moon, where the moon is not making any traditional aspects for across 30 degrees, across sign boundaries, to traditional planets. And man, I'll tell you what, that is a long void of course period. Okay. So we've had some ideas in the chat about how to utilize this energy. Some people compared it to a retrograde Mercury type of experience. Some people compared it to a Neptune type of experience. I think the Hellenistic astrologers would say nothing will come of the matter, right? You don't want to begin new things under the void of course moon, which is a little bit uncomfortable because we just started a new moon. So to me, that is a message to, like Saturn, be patient with the manifestations. You may have some ideas that you want to put out into the world, but there may be some things that are outside of your control, like we've been talking about with the macrocosm issues, like the government voting on health insurance or something like that. That all of that is in flux right now. There's probably going to be enough people that are like, I can't afford $500 more a month for my health insurance plan. And they're going to probably make enough noise that something might happen. I hope something might happen, because a lot of people are going to suffer if it doesn't change. So there may be something like that where we're waiting to get more information that makes making the new start or the new decision not the most fortuitous time for the 4 days between the 18th and the 22nd. Okay. Again, I like using this time period to just continue to work on things that have been already in process. Sometimes what I like to do during Hellenistic void of course moons is do like crazy cleaning projects. I know one void of course moon that lasted for like 2 or 3 days. We like cleaned out our basement. We like just got rid of all the clutter and crap in our basement over like the course of 3 days, and it felt amazing. But it was just like, okay, we'll do this. I have another project like that in my attic, so I would like to do that for my attic. Maybe this is a great time to do that. So a number of ways to utilize that energy so that you're not getting too frustrated by trying to initiate something that isn't in the stars, right? And I would also recommend, if you are going to start a big project, maybe start it before the void and just continue it through that. Now, when we get through this period as well, we're going to be seeing the Mercury version of our aspectual narrative. Mercury is going to sextile Saturn and Neptune, trine Uranus, and then move into Aquarius between the 18th and the 20th. So we might be getting some really good ideas about how to do something in an innovative way. All of these planets, the Venus, the Sun, and Mercury, they're all going to be encouraging us to think outside the box, right? And this is a continuation, I think, of the out of bounds planets experience, where those planets were not necessarily acting in the socially acceptable way. And now we're going to be seeing them making this trine to Uranus, where we got to shake things up. We got to do things in a new and innovative way. And since it's a trine, it could lead to some really positive outcomes. And that brings us to Aquarius season. Okay. Got a little bit further to go, friends. Maybe another 45 minutes or so. We'll see how much energy I've got left. It's getting hot in here. It's like 75 degrees in my office. Too hot. I got too many layers on. I think I need to take a layer off. We've got just like different climate zones in our house based on how much insulation there are on different windows. like we've got a living room that has like single pane glass windows and a big like bay window, and it just leaks heat like crazy. So it's like 10 degrees cooler out there, but in here the door is closed and it's better insulated, so it gets real hot. You can tell by the rosiness in my cheeks. Do my cheeks look rosy? Oh man. Okay, enough of that tomfoolery. So Aquarius 1. Now we have a shift in dignity, right? So the sun is in its exile in Aquarius. Generally, the sun is a planet that talks about individuation, power, right? Empowerment of an individual, sovereignty of a royal figure, of a king, of things of that nature. Saturn is a planet that wants to think about the bigger picture. It thinks more about homogenization instead of individuality. It thinks about how to, it's darkness rather than light. And when the sun's in this place, you may want to individuate, but there may be forces that are bigger than you. Maybe thinking more in terms of the collective rather than as your individual desires. So Aquarius 1 is associated with the Five of Swords. And here we see the Lord of Conflict and Defeat. Book of Tea and Book Toth call it the Lord of Defeat. Austin Coppock calls it the Mark of Exile. It is a Venus-ruled face in a Saturn-ruled sign. So Venus here is trying to show us the attractiveness of leaving the center behind, of leaving the socially acceptable way of doing things behind. If you think about Capricorn as being a prisoner inside the castle walls, inside of expectations, inside of material reality, Aquarius says, I'm going to transcend all that and go off onto the fringe of society. I'm going to go into exile, sometimes willingly, right? This is a decan. A lot of people who have placements in this decan, they're like, I don't agree with the centralized power. And a lot of us probably in the chat here are probably saying, I don't agree with the centralized government power right now. I don't agree with their values. Their values are not my values. So instead of conforming to those values, which, let's be honest, a lot of them are rooted in hate, xenophobia, paranoia, greed, we say we're not going to conform to that. We're going to go off and we're going to create our own experience on the fringe of society. And it might not be in relationship to the centralized power, but there's some beauty that we can create with that. And no, we might not be as well financed as the people that are in power. But we can still do a lot with more limited resources. Austin Coppock in his book 36 Faces talks about the coppersmith with this decan. So copper is a very useful metal that has a lot of electrical conductive qualities, and it is considered slightly less materially valuable than gold or silver, but it's very practical. So if you think about a coppersmith versus like a gold or a silversmith, they're working with materials that are slightly less quote unquote valuable, and maybe they are more valuable in other contexts, but able to make do with that. A lot of artists I've met that have Venus in Aquarius 1, the ruler, face ruler there, are able to take things that are discarded by others and make something beautiful with it. I had a wonderful client that makes these wonderful collage images based on people that have been traditionally cast out of society over the course of the last few centuries. They're beautiful, diverse collages. And it's think about like repurposing something to make something new. It's an experience that is spoken towards from the spirit of this decan, Daiki, who is an exactor of justice, right? A lot of the times we leave behind society because we just don't agree with their values. We think that it's unjust. Now, some other themes of this decan that we should be aware of is we have some concepts associated with the pain of comparison. First and foremost, it is a decan that's associated with exile, exclusion, isolation, escaping injustice. This is a decan very much associated with the refugee or immigrants, and I think this is a really important point to make, is we're going to see all of these Pluto conjunctions happening in this decan that's related to refugees, immigrants, people that are in a land foreign to themselves. I would not be surprised if some of the rhetoric from the centralized power increases around this period of time, which is very frightening to me because people have been really treated horribly in that regard, and I would love for them to find justice rather than more persecution. But sometimes we sacrifice security for freedom. Those of us who have left a situation that we didn't resonate with and gone off and tried to live our own life, sometimes the exchange is worth it. Sometimes it's really painful. I've tried to live somewhat on the fringe of society, despite having advantages and privileges in other ways, and it's not always easy. Being a counterculture can lead to some really wonderful manifestations, and it can lead to some difficult manifestations. So bizarre aesthetics, eclectic taste is something that is the Venus part of this that comes in, but also Schadenfreude and the pain of comparison. Sometimes this decking can lead us to feeling like, man, I really wish I had the support of the centralized power. And it's really difficult here out on the fringe of society. And wouldn't it be easier if I had these, if I was just like everyone else, right? But that's not always the way that life works out. So questions you can meditate on here. How can you effectively break away from the herd? Where is it a place where you can turn that alienation into independence? Sometimes when you're not dependent on what other people think, you have some great freedom. How can you close the gap between your expectations and reality as well, too? Sometimes the Aquarius can be a very, very idealistic sign. The air signs in general can be extraordinarily idealistic because they're basing their ideals not necessarily on reality, but on like the Platonic form ideal. Like they're basing not the vision of the horse on the horse that they saw down the street, but the best, most beautiful, like, star organization of a horse. I don't know if I'm describing that properly, but the outline of a horse, right? With 4 legs, a beautiful mane, whatever. And sometimes when reality doesn't match up with our idealization, that can be painful and make us feel a little bit, feeling that pain of comparison. What beauty is to be found on the frontier? How do we make communities when people are trying to split us apart? Like, that's one of the best ways of confronting authoritarianism and fascism is being able to create your own communities, because people, when they're split into isolation, they become easier to control. When they have banded together in community and supporting one another, then they're much stronger and it's much harder for one individual or one small section of a government force to control those folks. And that's something that is a great way to counteract some of the experiences we've been having on the planet, not just in America, but in other countries that have moved more towards authoritarianism and fascism. Can you turn another's treasure or trash into your treasure? So how do you repurpose things? If you don't have the resources to buy something brand new, how do you go find the same thing that you need, but turn it into something new? This is something that Tanya and I have talked a lot about as our financial situation changes, is how do we completely slash the budget, but without suffering? How do we grow more of our own food? How do we make more of the things that we want rather than having to buy them? What we do have is time, and we have enthusiasm and expertise. And sometimes what you create with your own 2 hands is a lot better than the bullshit that you buy at the store that was made specifically to break through planned obsolescence. So there can be some real beauty that you can create through, maybe you don't have the means to buy what everyone else buys, but it forces you to be innovative. And then finally, how can you quiet the mind of its turbulence? Anytime we have an air sign or an air decan, sometimes we can get overwhelmed with all of the thoughts that are going through our heads. And in this decan, this experience feels like a loss. Like we've experienced something where we weren't really winning. We lost something, but how can you quiet your mind so that you're not constantly reliving all of those challenges and come to that centered, peaceful place that will lead you to better future outcomes? All right. Rachel says, the shadow facts of horse. Ooh, that's a good one. Rachel's in our Lord of the Rings group. And Shadowfax is Gandalf's beautiful white horse that is like this idealistic horse, beautiful horse. And yes, he is the ideal. And if you find a horse and he's not Shadowfax, there could be disappointment around that, right? So I love that reference. Marius says, well, being an air sign, I do my best to see reality as it is and not what I want it to be. Kind of grew out of that. Help, I'm a Libra and my mind won't shut up. Yeah, and that's true for a lot of different placements, right? I have Venus in Gemini, Marietta, and sometimes, my monkey mind will keep chattering away. The whole like the multiple voices in your head where, for me, I'm attracted to possibilities. I'm not really good at castrating something into reality because I want to leave an escape route sometimes. And I've had to work through that to say, you know what, I don't have to do everything right now. I need to just choose something. And then I don't have to completely abandon all the other things. I just need to focus on what my highest priority is in the moment. Yeah. Okay, so let's see how this is going to unfold. What do you say? Riviera says, I'm a sun in Gemini conjoining Jupiter. Oh my goodness. So you got so many ideas. Got a lot of chatter going on there, I'm sure. All right, so where were we with our... Where were we, friends? Let's bring this to the stage again. And let's go back to... Here we go. Yeah. Painted Turtle says, oh my God, that reminds me, I keep trying for my Shadowfax 3 times to adopt a white dog, and the craziest things keep happening. Shadowfax. Yeah, and maybe, maybe they're an adjustment in what your ideal is. Maybe the vision that you have of your perfect dog, if it's like a purebred dog or something, maybe it's not the smartest dog in the world. Maybe it'll have some health problems or something. But if you find some mutt down at the pound that just has the heart of gold, it might be an even better manifestation. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's sort of the Aquarius energy, is how do we, release some of our idealizations and love the one we're with, love the one that's down there. I'm sure that there's a beautiful dog that's ready for you to adopt them, right? That would just love you, even if it doesn't look exactly how you want it to. Okay. So let's take a look at how this might play out. Let's go back to this. So the first thing that we get when the sun moves into Aquarius 1 is Venus conjoining Pluto. So here is Venus conjoining Pluto. Let's make this a noon chart again, just so we can kind of work through it and see it kind of consistently. So here is the 19th, and here's Venus conjoining Pluto. Again, I think a lot of collective energy around this. Aquarius is a sign that is associated with collective values. And when planets are conjoining Pluto, I think that there is going to be a lot of feelings of alienation due to exposure of corruption. So during this late January period, I have a feeling that there might be some righteous indignation and anger due to the exposure of the corruption of the centralized force that encourages people to maybe go off on the fringe and maybe not conform to the narrative that the the power players want you to conform to. I'm a little nervous about all these conjunctions, to be honest with you. I don't want to fearmonger about it, but there is a fixed star here that is associated with military power, Altair, 2 degrees of Aquarius. And it's a pretty bright fixed star, so it probably, even though the conjunction is happening, sometimes at 1 degree, sometimes at 3 degrees, it's pretty close to Altair. And we have seen an increase in rhetoric around military actions in the United States with the way that they've been going through the Venezuelan situation. Of course, you've got all the things happening in the Middle East. You've got the things happening in Ukraine. There's too many things to keep track of with all of that. But one thing that has been escalating is the Venezuelan conflict. And and I hope that it just exposes the corruption of those actions to the point where changes are made, instead of being an acceleration of those things. So we'll have to keep an eye on it. But I do have a feeling that this is the point in the month where there will be some collective things that are not necessarily in an individual's control that we will have to make choices about how we are going to relate to those powers and what we're going to do as a community. Not the funnest decan for Pluto and planets to be conjoining, if I'm going to be 100% honest. But Marietta says, I love my three-legged black kitty Empress. She's perfectly smart and goofy, and I don't know where I'd be without her. She's 6 years old. Empress is the best name, Lauren says. I agree. Thank you. It's came to me when I looked at it. Well, I'll tell you, friends, I have these wonderful cats, Gandalf and Radagast, that I found at the Humane Society, Huron Valley Humane Society. And when I found them, and here's just a good lesson in this, don't judge a book by its cover. They were the scraggliest little kittens, little long-haired babies, but their whiskers were all messed up. They're missing whiskers. But they were just, I just thought they were the most beautiful little babies. And I brought them home, and Tanya was like, they're just gray. That's boring. She wanted something that was like calico or something like that. But when they grew into adults, they're the most gorgeous, gorgeous cats. They're these long-haired sort of Maine Coon mixed cats, and they just have the sweetest, sweetest dispositions. And I am just grateful every single day that I get to share my life with them. So, sometimes we don't know how things are going to turn out until we just start engaging with it. And it's going to be a little bit different, the expectations that we may have around it. Cosmic Girl is here. What's up, Cosmic Girl? Guess I'm joining late. Alas, I am here. Nice to see you, friend. Hope you're doing well. Marietta says they're bombing boats in the Pacific now, too. Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. Just the kind of the corrupt military actions that are really, if we're being holistic about it, it's an excuse for, first of all, it's a distraction from the other corruption that the administration is doing. Secondly, it is an excuse, just like we saw in the Gulf War in the early 90s, an excuse to go in and try to extract resources from a country that is potentially not able to defend themselves in the same way. So it's the same script. It's the same script. So don't buy into it. Push back on your leaders. Call your senators. Don't let them get away with it. Maybe all these conjunctions are coming to a head. I think you're right. Rachel says, they are gorgeous cats. I love when Gandalf joins us for wizard stuff and Booker. Oh, thank you, Rachel. I love them. They're my shining light. The universe hates big injustices. I agree, but sometimes what I think happens is sometimes it takes time for that cycle to unfold and for justice to come about. So there may be a larger cycle that is happening right now where things do seem unfair, and it's part of a greater narrative, but in the short term, it could be really painful. So we'll have to see how it unfolds. Now, when we get to the 20th, Saturn is going to be sextiling Uranus. So here's Saturn sextile Uranus. And Mercury is going to move into Aquarius that day. So here's Mercury moving into Aquarius, getting ready for its Cazimi the next day. Is setting off Mars, the Mars cycle, where Mars sextiles Saturn and Neptune, trines Uranus, and moves into Aquarius. So this is a repetitive story that we're going to see coming up with each of these planets. It was Venus first, and then we had the Sun go through that, and now it was Mercury and Mars. So just get used to that pattern and just know that it's going to be happening with multiple planets. Let's talk about the Cazimi a little bit. I'm starting to run out of steam, so let's kind of move it forward here, friends. Mercury Cazimi, 1 degree of Aquarius on the 21st. And this is a renewal in the heart of the sun for Mercury. What I want you to do is I want you to think about how Mercury is going to be affecting your Gemini and Virgo areas of your chart. So there could be information that you are getting that is coming from a more collective place, not necessarily something that is in your individual control, that could have a significant effect on your Gemini topic and your Virgo topic. So this is always good practice to see not only where the planet is making its cazimi, but how is it affecting the other topics in your life. If there is a collective vote that's happening on, let's just use the practical example of health insurance. That could have a significant effect on other areas of your life, your resources, etc. So learn to think holistically in that way. Learn to think in the way that is relating the guest-host relationship, like a planet in a specific condition is providing for other areas of your life and of your topics in your chart. All right. Let's see. Yes, your sun and moon. Okay. Now, the 22nd, we have Mercury conjoining Pluto. So a repetition of the Venus-Pluto conjunction. Those continuation of whatever themes are coming out. There may be an attraction. I would say let's think about this in a way that is a linear narrative. I know that we don't always think in linear terms, but let's think about the order of these planets conjoining Pluto. There may be someone trying to attract you to the idea of corruption with Venus conjoining Pluto. There may be trying to, like a whitewashing, right, of something really corrupt that's happening. When Mercury conjoins Pluto, there may be questions that come up from that attempted gaslight. And then when the sun comes and conjoins Pluto, the truth comes out, the spotlight is on there. And then when Mars conjoins Pluto, there's actions that are being taken. So it goes Venus, Mercury, Sun, Mars. Okay. Attraction, questions, spotlight, truth, action. Okay. I think that's a good way to think about this, because we could be repeating the different themes over and over again, but we have to see it as a narrative. So those themes are going to be really prevalent. The themes of immigration, the themes of people in exile, the themes of the other, right? The themes of feeling cast out, the themes of feeling disappointment in the centralized power to the point where you're like, I don't want to participate in that at all. So these are things that we're looking at. And as we see the 23rd, that's when the sun's going to conjoin Pluto. Okay. Sort of a renewal of Pluto in the heart of the sun. So really pay attention to what happens on the 22nd, the 23rd, as far as what types of themes we're going to be dealing with Pluto moving forward for the next year or so, right? How are we going to deal with corruption? How are we going to deal with the abuses that we see of people that are being cast out? How are we going to deal with humanely dealing with people that don't look like us, right? Instead of demonizing them, instead of abusing them, instead of exploiting them. These are questions we're going to have to ask them. It's going to bring, I think Pluto brings some ugliness to the surface, but think of Pluto as that divine plumber. It's going to bring the shit up. It's going to unplug the toilet, and the bathroom's going to be fucked up for a while. It's going to be just full of shit, but eventually you clean up the shit and you flush, the toilet flushes again, and you have a functional toilet. So the same thing with like a volcano, another theme that Pluto is often compared to, or symbol. You have the volcanic eruption. Everything is like chaotic for a while, but eventually that volcanic eruption creates new life. You know, if you look at the islands of Hawaii, those the islands themselves were created from the chaos of continued volcanic eruptions and activity. So those volcanic eruptions, those exposures of corruption, the unplugging of the cosmic toilets, it can lead to new life. And I think that that's a healthy way to look at that. Is we have to deal with some really difficult things to be able to get to the rebirth. Okay. All right, so we've gotten to the 25th. We're coming round the end here. Coming round the bend, folks. Thanks for hanging with me. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your long-term attention. I could use some more snacks when I do this. I think I'm just getting some low blood sugar. I hope you have enough snacks when you settle in for 3 hours of Spencer Michaud astrology. But this is a first quarter moon, excuse me. This is a first quarter moon where the sun's in its exile, but the moon is in its exaltation. So while the other thing to consider with all of these conjunctions with Pluto, especially the sun's conjunction with Pluto, sometimes because the sun shows us the condition of our leadership, it can expose corruption in our leaders. And because the sun's in its exile, we might have a leader that is kind of falling from grace as well. So there may be challenges to power around this period of time, protesting the abuse of power. Now, I say that because the sun being in its exile means that if the centralized figure, power, leader, etc., is in a place that is uncomfortable, the moon is exalted. The moon in astrology often represents the masses, the people. So this could be conflict between the masses and the centralized leadership powers. Now, who's in better shape in this relationship, though? It's the moon. So this could be a time where we're seeing like protests. This could be a time where people are banding together to be able to support one another. They might be holding power accountable around this period of time. I think a lot of the questions that are coming up, though, are going to be because people are feeling the pinch of scarcity. The first decan of Taurus is associated with the Five of Pentacles. Five of Pentacles, you see two figures that have fallen on hard times that are outside of a church in the snowstorm. And when you have authoritative power or authoritarian power that is consolidating wealth and taking it away from the people, eventually the people are going to say, hey, we're not going to put up with this anymore. We're your labor force, and we're going to stop laboring for you if you don't let us have a quality of life that is at least halfway decent, you know? So this might be the other questions that are coming up around this period of times. How do we create a plan to deal with our feelings of scarcity? How do we create one that's just for the most amount of people rather than just for the select individual few? So might be some feelings of worry. It's called the Lord of Worry, but the moon is exalted here. There are solutions if we are able to band together and think of wealth in slightly different terms sometimes. Javier made a sandwich. Oh, I'm jealous of that sandwich. Lauren says, gotta go. Take care, Spencer. Glad to see you're doing well and keeping your head up and heart up in it all. I always do appreciate your realism and determination towards the good. I catch my favorite part, the animal, on the replay. Oh, Lauren, appreciate you, friend. Thank you for stopping in. Don't be a stranger. Hope everything's going well your way, my friend. See you all on the flip side. Be kind to your beautiful selves. I agree. Marietta says, I also look at eruptions as a mitigation of inner workings and what's going on in the unseen. So much is happening in the unseen that it needs pressure released in the seen world. I love those times. Yeah. It's, they're necessary, right? Volcanic eruptions are necessary to create new land masses. And it can be really frightening in the moment, but we will see this when we look at the I-Ching moving forward, is sometimes things that shake underneath our feet will at first be scary, but then we laugh afterwards, right? Then we're like, I see what's happening there. You get a wink from spirit, from the divine, from nature, from the great plan of the universe. Like, oh, okay, now I get it. And that's what astrology can help us with, for sure. All right. So the next aspect that we have after this first quarter moon, the challenge of like bringing something into material, right? The challenge of finding the material support for the masses really is that first quarter. That's when Neptune turns into Aries. goes into Aries. So look at what happens here on the 26th and 27th. Here we have Neptune in Aries. Okay. Now we got a preview of this in early 2025 when Neptune and Saturn were in Aries, but they weren't necessarily conjunct. This is a drying out of some of our idealism. This is a different way of approaching merging with the collective. Sometimes Neptune can be the collective dream, the collective idealism, the collective illusion. And I talked a lot about this with Melissa LaFara we talked a lot about risk-taking, a need to start new things, but also the illusion that we have to do things on our own. I think this is something I have to work through myself too, is sometimes when you come from some trauma in your life, sometimes you feel like you can't trust people. And what that leads to is trying to take on the burden of responsibility as an individual without working with people, because you're like, I don't know if I could trust them because I've been disappointed a lot in the past. And to me, that can be just as much of an illusion that we have to do everything ourselves. And I think Neptune in Aries, that's part of the challenge with it. There's so many other different ways that we could explore. I do want to show you, though, the decan flashcard associated with the first decan of Aries. One of the things I am really nervous about with this, though, just on a collective level, you can see in this card, it's called the Lord of Dominion. And the Two of Wands shows a figure like Alexander the Great holding a globe, trying to figure out which new territory he wants to conquer. And this could be metaphorical with like, which new projects do we want to do in our life? Which new areas do we want to explore? It can also be very literal with like certain governments trying to take over and annex other countries. We saw this at the beginning of 2025 when there was a lot of saber rattling from places like Russia into Ukraine. The United States was talking about Greenland and Canada and all of these like kind of things around manifest destiny. And the last time Neptune was in Aries, those types of things were happening too. Like there was great swaths of territories that were changing hands because of an Alexander the Great type of experience with trying to dominate and colonize other areas. So be careful we have to be careful of that. We have to call out that type of thinking, because everybody deserves personal sovereignty, and turning allies into enemies is a recipe for disaster. I get so disheartened when I hear leadership in America, especially talking about Canada in that regard. I have so many beautiful friends and compadres in Canada, and just seeing these two nations come into conflict that have been such great allies over a long period of time is just so sad and scary. So how do we push back on that type of thinking? How do we unify rather than separate? The energy of Aries 1, though, is separating from the collective to individuate. So on an individual level, we may have to try to figure out how to support ourselves if some of the support that we received from the collective gets taken away. And with the way things are going in my own home country of America, like the social safety nets are starting to be diminished further and further and further, casting people into a situation where they are having to rely on not only themselves, but their local network of communities. So if that is the case, how do we build communal relationships with each other so that we can support one another and not feel like we have to take on these forces just as individuals? All right, we can talk about Neptune in Aries a lot more moving forward. We'll talk about that a lot in February when Saturn and Neptune are coming together. The conflicting energy of trying to concretize an ideal into manifestation. Unfortunately, too, Saturn and Neptune Aries periods in the past have talked about increased conflicts, too, because people are glamorizing war. We've got the Department of Defense changing its name to the Department of War, which is just so ridiculous and childish. It's a weird time in the collective right now. And we are seeing a form of toxic masculinity being glamorized by certain people. And I think that we can be a force, a counter force for love. I think that's going to be really important for those of us who believe in cooperation and kindness and a balance between our masculine and sacred feminine selves. How do we be that counterpoint to that energy? Marietta says, same. I feel the way about the conqueror energy going around. The only thing we should be working on to conquer is evil. Sure. And working on conquering our ignorance through bringing things to light, working on conquering our fear through love, working on conquering our shadows and integrating that with ourselves to become a whole person rather than these severed, separated selves. Trauma says, war is ugly. They make it foggy, like strange fog that keeps popping up. One of the things that I love about Tolkien, Marietta, and The Lord of the Rings is we're getting to the point in our book club where the ring is destroyed. Spoiler alert, if you haven't read them. The ring is destroyed. The hobbits are starting to return home, but home is different. Home is not the same place. And a lot of, there's still challenges to overcome, and war changes them. The War of the Ring was in Lord of the Rings, and there was so many losses. It wasn't this glorified thing. It was this thing that had a great cost to it. And Frodo, for example, he's changed. He can't go back to his previous life. He eventually has to sail into the West. He can't return to the same old Shire. And this is something that we don't think about enough. We have people that play video games, war games, like Call of Duty. I don't know. I've never played any of those things. Like, I guess back in the day, like the closest thing I ever got to that was playing GoldenEye on the Super Nintendo or Nintendo 64 or whatever. But I was a teenager, and I wasn't as reflective on these things. I was a teenager. Think about that. That was something teenagers do. That's not something adults do. You know, glorifying war is something that children do, you know? And a lot of it is because the adults have glamorized it. And how do we teach the innocents to value love in the same way that we have glamorized war? Because there's always fallout. Like, nobody wins in a war. Even if you're quote unquote victorious, everyone loses. And I think this is something that Neptune in particular tends to glamorize something in the beginning of the cycle. And then when everyone wakes up from the collective illusion, they realize that, holy shit, that was not what we thought it was. And there is this disillusionment that happens afterwards. So be very careful about people glamorizing that Aryan energy of conflict, of domination, of toxic masculinity, because there will be fallout from that. There will be a collective awakening after that where we're like, holy shit, what did we just do? You know, and as astrologers, we have to see those greater cycles and use our pronoia to make different choices in the moment. How do you make different choices in the moment? Just because the planet is influencing us and culture towards a certain direction does not mean that we have to hop on board with that. And make no mistake, Neptune is the type of movement energy that leads to collective hysteria. Okay, it leads to Dionysian hysteria, where, you know, you had Dionysians ripping people's limbs off in hysteria. So how do we stay grounded and centered when the collective energy is under this grand illusion? And it's through knowledge, it's through wisdom, it's through shining light on things, it's through taking the long-range view. It's through asking questions rather than making declarative statements. It's through having discussions rather than having just stating your case. We try to do that here, but yeah, Marietta says, agreed, the feminine is waking up. Yeah, it has to. It has to. The toxic patriarchal worldview has brought us within inches and minutes of destruction, like the destruction clock, right? It's inching minutes, seconds to midnight at this point. And it's because of an overabundance of toxic masculinity. And we have to awaken. that balancing force, which is receptive, which is communal, which is supportive, rather than trying to dominate one another. So Neptune and Aries. I'm sure we'll be having discussions about this moving forward as we see that unfold and that energy unfold. Couple of things. Mars is going to conjoin Pluto on the 27th, the day after Neptune moves into Aries. This one's kind of explosive, right? I know that we've talked about the volcanic eruption type of thing, but Mars-Pluto contacts, that's the quintessential volcanic eruption. That's the violent eruption. So be careful about getting into situations that you could experience violence. Be cautious around those types of things. Be careful about exploding with your own anger. How do you maintain your own composure during a Mars-Pluto conjunction? I'm going to guarantee that there are going to be people that are pretty angry around this period of time for whatever reason, whether it's consolidation of wealth, whether it's the destruction of our social safety nets, whether it's warmongering or anything of that nature. There's going to be people that are upset. How do you keep your head and your wits about you while other people are losing theirs? I've said this with other transits like this in the past, but you can make a much wiser choice if you keep your composure and you keep your vision rather than allowing the energy to consume you so that you are making a choice that isn't necessarily in your best interest or others' best interest. Mercury is going to conjoin Pluto the day after that. So again, some questions coming up after the action. So maybe the Mars-Pluto conjunction is some violent action that we are then asking questions about and say, why is this happening? Does this really need to happen? Kind of thing. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well. All right. Marietta says, yes, we don't need that frenzied zealousness. Dionysus could stay home. There you go. Yeah, zealotry is very, very Neptunian. Absolutely. I'll be watching for actual eruptions that day. That could be a very literal manifestation of that too. There's been a lot of volcanic activity in Hawaii, for example, and that could be a literal manifestation of that volcanic eruptions. Remember what I said about resisting the brushing of the wings, right? Totally. All right. Let's see. Mariana says, I took a quick look at the astrology of December. I recommend to go back to those analyses now in the present. Very interesting. Yeah. We did a whole live stream, a lengthy one, just like this one today. So being able to reflect on that and seeing how it's unfolding in real time can be super valuable. So yeah, thank you, Mariana. Okay. February. Let's take a look at February, just a preview of February. So all of those planets that have gone through the grinder, right? The renewal in the heart of the sun, the conjunction with Pluto, all of the trines with Uranus, etc., the squares that they went through with Neptune and Saturn in December. Now all of those planets, Mercury, Venus, Sun, and Mars, are going to square Uranus in February in the third 10-degree section of Aquarius and the third 10-degree section of Taurus. So a lot of shakeups in February potentially. Saturn will conjoin Neptune in Aries, a really, really big conjunction for 2026. Again, the competing energy of structures coming and manifesting and dissolving of other structures. Mercury is going to retrograde in Pisces. So Mercury in Pisces is already sort of a challenging position, with Mercury being in its fall and exile, double debility in Pisces. There is maybe a potential for something to go well with that due to our theory that we were bringing from Vedic astrology about a retrograde planet in its fall could potentially be acting like a planet in its exaltation. So let's keep our eyes for that as maybe something of hope. We also have a new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius in February that is squared Uranus. So the beginning of like these Uranian inspired energies having to deal with potentially with humility in the face of nature, which Uranus and Taurus 3 speaks to. So really dealing with like climate change and things like that as well could be something we're moving forward with in 2026 as well. I know that the themes that are coming up in my area are the data centers. You know, in Michigan where I live, they're trying to put a data center in every rural community, and people are really pushing back on it, and because of the environmental impacts, and they're just not listening. They're just doing it anyway. And these are also things that we need to keep an eye on moving forward. The battle between technology and nature, which it really doesn't have to be a battle if we would just utilize technology in ways that were sustainable rather than exploitive. All right. Well, that's what we've got for here. For January. Checking. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, KWOW, for your super chat. KWOW says, thanks, Spencer. I'm glad to have discovered your channel this year. Appreciate you, friend. And thank you for your generosity each week. Thank you for just your sustained attention and coming to the lives, but also your material donations too. I really appreciate that. And it does help sustain the work that we do here. Cosmic Girl says, Neptune and Saturn conjunct in my first house on natal Mercury. Oh my goodness, that's going to be a big one. Mariana says, I will start my Saturn return and Uranus is over my moon, Taurus in the 12th. Oof. Well, stay tuned to Spencer Michaud Astrology. We'll try to keep you prepared and try to guide you with the best wisdom and put our heads together to help get us all through it together, friend. Trauma Raised Me says, resist the brushing of the wings is a key, often misunderstood phrase from the movie Exorcist II, the heretic, referring to the demon Pazuzu's insidious influence, where being touched by its wings means corruption. But the movie introduces a solution, specifically bred locusts, like the good locusts, that have been genetically engineered by science to resist this demonic touch, offering hope. Ooh, I like that. That's great. Hope against possession and evil. Well, that's what we've got to do. We've got to create good locusts through our community and kindness. So I like that. I'm too much of a softie to watch any of the Exorcist movies. I've seen so many things that are like, these are the scariest movies ever made. And I'm just like, I can't. I have such a vivid imagination that I won't sleep for like a week if I watch something like that. I have trouble with Stranger Things. I love Stranger Things because of the nostalgia and all the 80s references, but the horror involved in it is still tough for me. And like, man, the worst ones are like the Alien movies. I can't handle that. My dad loves them, and every once in a while I caught like a glimpse of them when I was a kid, and I was like, oh no, get away, Xenomorph. I can't handle it. But anyway, I digress. It is a good idea. How do we become those good locusts? Let's see. Thank you, KWOW. Happy to have found him as well. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you for those of you who are in a position to make those donations. It really, really does help. And thank you just everyone who continues to show up, engage with the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. Use those new YouTube hype things. I don't know how that all works. It's all changing so quickly. But yeah, Javier says, February sounds ouch. Potentially. We'll get through it together, though. We'll get through it together, friends. Speaking of getting through it, we have an I-Ching and an animal for you to help us get through it. The I-Ching for this month is number 40, Deliverance. So I'm going to read to you, as I do, from my favorite translation, Jack Balkin's The Laws of Change. And this is changing from hexagram 40, Deliverance, to 51, Shock. So some shocking things maybe in January coming. So deliverance translates to release, relief, separation, removal, loosening the knot, untying, ending of obstructions, end of hardships, redemption, forgiveness, letting go of the past. Jack Balkin goes on to say, things have been frustrating for a long time. You may have been unable to make progress, or your relationships have been full of conflict and misunderstanding. Now things start to get better. Tensions begin to be eased. Difficulties begin to resolve themselves. It is as if a storm has broken and the air has suddenly cleared. You feel liberated from what had been a seamlessly endless cycle of failure and frustration. There is new hope. When conditions start to improve after a long period of stagnation, it is perfectly all right to celebrate and feel joy. A heavy burden has been lifted from your shoulders. It's no wonder that you feel stimulated. But the most important thing is to regain your balance. Hence, the text speaks of the southwest, the direction traditionally associated with the earth. It is time to put yourself on solid ground and restore conditions of normalcy. Return to healthy patterns of living and restore the natural rhythms of your life. Now, there are two changing lines. The first changing line is the initial one. It says, without blame. When deliverance comes, it is time to recuperate. Be calm and at peace with yourself. You've surmounted your difficulties and now can progress naturally. But first, it's important to consolidate your position, rest, and recharge your batteries before going forward. Doing so is without blame. So rest first. If you've been delivered from your challenges, if the new Kazimis of Venus and Mars have brought you some new manifestations, consolidate those. You don't have to necessarily rush out and do everything right away. Wait till you see those planets emerge from under the beams, but feel the relief first. The second changing line says, one slays these 3 foxes with a golden one. With a golden arrow? A golden arrow. One catches 3 foxes in the field and receives a yellow arrow. Perseverance brings good fortune. The 3 foxes represent greed, ignorance, and fear. They hinder and obstruct your process by filling you with negative emotions and incorrect assessments of the world around you. Yellow is the color of the mean. It represents the virtues of modesty and moderation, the ability to maintain emotional balance in the face of changing circumstances and to carry things through to completion. A straight arrow symbolizes taking the straight and upright course of action. Thus, to slay 3 foxes with a yellow or golden arrow means to overcome those negative emotions that create troubles in your life, to deliver yourself from the internal impediments that make external obstacles seem to loom so large. Through cultivation of the virtues of modesty, steadfastness, and uprightness. This is the path of redemption. For even if we have failed ourselves in the past and have undermined our own lives through our inner turmoil and confusion, there is still hope. The golden arrow has yet another meaning. By tradition, a golden arrow was awarded to the person who had achieved something great and honorable. Thus, the text suggests that people who can internalize the virtues of modesty and moderation and commit themselves to a straight path, deliver themselves from internal servitude, and therefore can achieve great things. There we go. Moderation, balance, right? Getting rid of those negative qualities, or working through them. Oftentimes, we're not immune, even if we are practitioners of spiritual traditions. We're not immune to greed. We're not immune to ignorance or fear. There may be things that in the collective that are trying to incite all of those things within us, or show us that or try to gaslight us to thinking that those are the only ways out. And what we have to do is return back to moderation, return back to the ability to see this world as having the potential for kindness, the potential for good, the potential for creating a new way of sharing, a new economic system of abundance rather than one based on scarcity. Now this is changing to the hexagram 51, shock. Thunder, shake, quake, upheaval, the arousal, reassessing your life, shocking you out of your lethargy, hidden potential and sudden change, blessing in disguise, taking action. I said southern change. Maybe that was a Freudian slip. Maybe there will be changes in our southern hemispheres. So this hexagram says something unexpected has shaken you. You had not prepared for it. Suddenly, your life seems in upheaval. You experience great fear and panic. But once your initial reaction subsides, you will recognize that the sudden turn of events is for the best. You have been caught by surprise, but if you hold yourself properly, something positive can and will emerge from the shakeup. The important thing now is to stay calm and keep your wits about you. Take a closer look at the situation. It's possible that you have simply taken on too much. The shocking event may be a blessing in disguise. It gives you an opportunity to reassess your priorities and lessen some of your burdens. Perhaps you've drifted into an unsatisfying and unrewarding routine. The shocking event can awaken you from your lethargy and force you to change your plans. The disruption of your everyday life can invigorate and give you a fresh outlook on life. It is like being splashed with cold water. It is unpleasant at first, but it stimulates the senses. After the shakeup, you suddenly see new possibilities. Although the change may be disturbing in the beginning, maintain your poise and approach the new situation with an open mind. You will come out of this series of events stronger, better, and happier. And this judgment says shock, success, thunder comes, crack, crack. Afterwards, there's laughter and talk, ha ha. The shock terrifies for 100 miles, but he does not let the sacrificial spoon and chalice fall. So this is about keeping our composure, right? How do we keep our composure where the event that's shocking is going to elicit fear at first, potentially, but then afterwards we're like, oh, that's the universe. See, something good can come from this. I used this example earlier when I was talking about my sports team and the initial shock of a serious injury to one of the players on the team that I follow, the Green Bay Packers. Micah Parsons tore his ACL. It was a shocking, disappointing outcome for their best player. But it might lead to some kind of innovation. It might lead to them banding together more as a team rather than just watching this extraordinarily gifted individual single-handedly win games for them. So how do we do that? How do we do that as a community? If we've lost something that is important to us, how do we band together as a community and come together with innovation to be able to take that circumstance and turn it into something life-giving, like the volcanic eruption that eventually becomes new land and new fertility? All right, let's see. Trauma Raised Me says, I totally get that, Spencer. I'm the same way, but I torture myself because I still enjoy it. Got to close those doors to my mind first, right? I think it's talking about horror movies, maybe, right? Marietta says, interesting. Redemption after shock and awe. Maybe we as Americans will be able to get a redemption arc. And Trump is about to do something irredeemable. That above comment had 47 character spaces left by Claire Cognizant, picking up on what the universe is putting down. Potentially. I have a special connection with yellow roses. You can stay ready and still be prepared. Yeah, and here's what I'll say. There is I'm going to choose my words carefully because I think that sometimes it's easy to get misinterpreted. I think that what happens a lot with the current administration, I don't super enjoy using the person's name, 47, right? Like you were alluding to. I think that part of the means of control is to continually destabilize people through shock, through fear, through gaslighting, through paranoia, through continually distracting away from the corruption and wealth consolidation and consolidation of power and authoritarianism. The best thing that you can do when those things are happening is maintain your composure. Don't take the bait. Friends, I've dealt with some narcissists in my life. And the best thing that you can do when you're dealing with a narcissist that wants to be a chaos agent is you withdraw your attention from them. It doesn't mean that we don't pay attention to the people that are being hurt. We need to pay attention to those folks and offer our assistance in our community. But the less you can give attention to a narcissist, the better. The less you're posting about their bullshit. I mean, within reason. You want to call out the bullshit without continually taking the bait, continually taking because these folks feed on negative attention. And when you refuse to be, flustered by it, you become unassailable. You become strong. You become very powerful. Because when you keep your clarity in times of shock, the only weapon that they have is the fear-mongering. And if you can hold your focus on calling out the corruption and hold your focus on the solutions to creating a better and just and kinder world, you become extremely powerful, right? Like Marietta says, you could stay ready and still be ill-prepared. Sure. There's shocking things that happen in the world that we as astrologers try to predict, and then there's still things that come that are like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. Right? And how do we maintain our composures in that? Marietta says, that's why Black people are resting. Well, yeah, I mean, people of color have been persecuted for or centuries, and they've had to. I've witnessed, Marietta, my own partner, is Black, and she's had to maintain her composure in a lot of different difficult situations. And I've witnessed her being that centered person when a lot of people would have just, like, I don't know, lost their mind. And it's because that it was dangerous for people in an oppressed demographic to lose their composure. And I'm not saying it's right. I think that there's so much repressed anger that people should be allowed to feel. But I do think that when we keep our composure, we are able to take actions that are effective rather than to come into alignment with the chaos. Because what chaos does is it scatters energy. And that's what authoritarianism does. It wants to scatter organized counter movements to it through creating all of these distractions. If we are organized and clear-headed, that's when we push back against the powers that be in an effective way, in an organized way. So that's what I say when I mean composure. It doesn't mean we shouldn't be angry. It doesn't mean we shouldn't call truth to power. It just means that we should do it in a way that's focused and not uncentered. Marietta says, it's hard as a disabled and vulnerable member of society. I've been navigating pretty well, all things considered. You know what? You keep showing up for life, Marietta, and I appreciate that about you. And I appreciate the wisdom that you bring in our chat. So I'm just grateful that you're here, and grateful that you keep on taking each day one day at a time and trying to shine your light out there. And I think that's all we can do, right? Whether we're in the oppressed demographic or in the demographic that has privilege, we can all try to support each other towards a fairer and more just society. And I hope that we're hopefully modeling that here today. All right, friends, we've got one more little animal for you. We've got an animal. This is a funny one. The animal I got for you. I've been picking new animals based on bibliomancy, right? And I pick a random number, and then I look at that number in my animal frequency book. And the animal I got was the sugar glider. Look at this little guy, right? I believe the sugar glider is native to Australia. We do have flying squirrels here in America. I've seen them in my area. That's crazy. They're very nocturnal, so you don't see them during the day. But I actually saw a deceased one in my neighborhood not that long ago, similar to the sugar glider. But the difference between a flying squirrel and a sugar glider is sugar gliders are marsupials. So I'm going to read to you from this beautiful book, Animal Frequency, by Melissa Alvarez. The number I got was 296, if that means anything to you. So this is page 296. Sugar glider is a marsupial that symbolizes flying high, leaping without fear, but knowing where you're going and how to get there. Sugar glider lives with a sense of purpose. It has focused energy. Remember what we're talking about? Focus. It must know exactly where it's going to land before it leaps. You share this same sense of purpose in your life. You know where you're going and what you need to do to achieve the results that you want. Sugar glider urges you to apply this same focus to any decisions that you are about to make. Look at all the possibilities and where you'll end up before taking that leap. You soar with focused determination, which will make you successful. This is another thing that Aquarius is really good at, is being able to see the big picture rather than just the narrowly focused subjective one. So see how your actions are going to fit in with the collective. See how it's going to fit in with one action fitting in with the rest of your life, and how it affects not only yourself, but your community. When sugar glider appears, it means to look at how you're interacting with people. A male sugar glider marks the members of its group with its scent. If any others try to become a part of that group, he will violently chase them away. Sometimes you will experience personal and spiritual growth by meeting and interacting with new people. Sugar glider warns against being cliquish. Sugar glider sleeps all day and is up at night. It does this to protect itself from predators. You may also do your best work at night, so consider nighttime careers. The sugar glider is a marsupial gliding opossum that keeps its young in its pouch. This means you have all you need within you. The creative ideas you come up with will grow into successful ventures if you nurture them. When you take note of little things and apply them to your ideas, you will come up with phenomenal inventions or new ways of doing things. You're very much an inventor at heart. You feel energized by the creative process. It doesn't matter what you're making, art, books, or building, you're able to create unique and interesting projects. This animal assists you when you want to bond with others in more meaningful ways. If your relationships are lacking feeling of closeness, Sugar Glider can show you how to deepen your interactions and develop the intimacy you desire. While this could be sexual in nature, it applies to platonic relationships as well. Oftentimes, relationships lack the trust needed for extreme closeness. Sugar Glider can teach you how to trust others, but more importantly, how to trust yourself. If you aren't connected to your own inner truth and believe in that truth, then how can you expect others to trust you or open up to you? Starting within yourself, overcome any insecurities you may feel or fears that you may be facing. Are you blocking others from getting too close to you because you see comfort as a weakness? You're already strong. Giving or receiving comforting words or gestures is a sign of inner strength, not weakness. You'll be amazed with the changes that you'll experience in your relationships as you make changes within yourself. I love it. Sugar Glider, right? So learn to trust. Learn to trust yourself. We say this on the channel. Be kind to yourself so you can be kind to others. Learn to trust yourself and believe in yourself to create community. See where you're going before you take the leap. Game it out a little bit. Visualize. Carry people along with you in the pouch, right? I think this is a cute little animal. Just a beautiful little creature here. Yeah, love Sugar Gliders. A stink bug showed up to me today, Marietta says. I didn't put her out. It's too cold. Well, there you go. Showing kindness to the smallest of us, right? They're really not going to hurt anything. Rachel says, I met one of these cuties when I took Loki in for a recent veterinarian checkup. Oh, that's cool. Maybe it's a symbol that's speaking to you, friend. So there you go. Sugar Glider, an animal guide for the month of January. So friends, that's what I've got for you. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for spending time together. That's a great way to show that we care about each other, is spending time together. That's a love language. So thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with me today and with the community. You can find me over at Spencer Michaud on the social medias, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, etc. You can also find me over at spencermichaud.com. Please do me a favor. Please like the video. Even if you're on the mobile version, we have two versions that go out. We have the desktop version, and then we have a vertical mobile version. Please like it on there. Leave a comment after the fact if you're watching after the fact. Always love hearing from you after the fact. Go over to spencermichaud.com. Go find all the different offerings that we have over there. Join the newsletter. Visit Third Coast Mojo. Support Tanya. She's got some awesome Jupiter exalted Cancer stuff that's amazing. Makes you feel like just giving. You know, it makes you see the abundance in the world. It's like a cornucopia of abundance, and it's like, oh, you know what? I am wealthy. I'm wealthy in health, time, friendship, community. It just helps you see the abundance that surrounds you every day, and it doesn't necessarily have to look a certain way. So that's what I've got for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Appreciate all of you. Thank you, Marietta. Thank you, Javiera. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everybody that stopped in today. Appreciate all of you. Have a great rest of your December, and have a fortuitous January moving forward, and we'll get through this together, my friends. Be kind to yourself, be kind to one another, and we'll see you the next time. Peace.